the freight and public transport conducted. Okay, sorry about that. I see it says I was muted. I'm hoping you can hear me, Chair. So the freight and public transport had the site visit to PRASA facilities in Gauteng and in the Western Cape, which was to assist social partners to gain more understanding into these issues, and that would also contribute to effective discussions within Nedlac on the issues or interventions to improve the freight and public transport issues. Okay, my slide is not moving. I'm not sure, Chair, if you can see the movement on my slides. It seems to... Okay, yes, it is now moving. And we then also continued with the work on the labor law reforms. In Q1, the negotiations were held on the issues pertaining to Code of Good Practice on dismissal and dismissal for operational requirements, the definition of employee, dismissal procedures for high-paying employees, and the second quarter focused on the finalizing the issues, including the Code of Good Practice on dismissals, the improved functioning of the CCMA, changes to the unfair labor practice definition, retrenchments and severance pay, bargaining rights for non-standardized employees, and also provisions for startup and temporary employment services. That was the work done in the second quarter. We also had the think pieces focusing on the just transition in relation to optimizing labor laws and labor market regulations, and climate proofing, focusing on the labor law to protect workers from the heat stress, and also improving the efficiency of the labor market institutions. The second quarter, we also had dialogue sessions on the implications of heat stress on the health and safety of workers and mechanisms to address such challenges, and also looking into the adequacy of existing labor laws to support just transition. And then the work of the labor market and development chambers, which was done jointly, included the finalization of the national labor migration policy discussions, as well as the second amendment to the immigration regulations, which included the proposals to reduce the requirements that were perceived to be burdensome to get work visas in the country, and also introduction of a remote work visa and a point-based system. Those was just some of the issues contained in the immigration regulations. And then the development chamber concluded the work on the EPWP policy to strengthen the effectiveness of the EPWP, as well as the social services bill. And then the second quarter and first quarter dialogues focused on the disaster preparedness, detection of disasters, timely responses, and the early warning systems. And I must indicate, Chair, that this was a build-up from the 2022-23 summit, which focused on the disasters. And so this dialogue was a follow-up to the engagements that were held at the summit. And we also discussed the national policing policy. And then also we had engagements relating to the human resources and skills development through the subcommittee of the ILO Decent Work Country Program at Nedlac, which received a report on the methodology and tools to develop a critical skills list. And then we also had the work stream receiving updates on the Blue Drop and No Drop report from the Department of Water and Sanitation. And also we received presentation on the review of grants to the municipalities in respect of water matters. The emerging issues has a task team on the cost of living increases, And this task team looked into the essential food price monitoring report from the Competition Commission, and also on the proposals to minimize the cost of staple foods and to address the malnutrition amongst the children. And also we received a government response to the proposed pregnancy support grant. And then in the second quarter, the task team received the presentations on the strategy to reduce food loss and waste from the DFFE, the poultry master plan from the DTIC, still on the evaluation of the best buy campaigns, and the fresh produce market competition commission report that was done through the structure. And then the unemployment insurance fund focused on the resolution of backlogs in the payment of the outstanding monies for the COVID TERS and the WABU, and also the lack of execution efficiently of the CCMA TERS, and also the need to modernize the UI system. In the second quarter, Chair, the presentations were received from the Department of Employment and Labor on these issues, and looking into reconfiguring the UI and amend the UI Act. And during that period, the organized business and labor were not happy with the matters that were discussed and the progress thereof, which this was subsequently escalated to the office of the DG. And following that escalation, there has been progress on the consideration of these issues at Nedlac, Chair. And then I know my time is running up, so quickly, we've got the Climate Commission that focused on the policy and scientific recommendations. The PCC approved the reports on the just transition financing mechanisms and the state of climate action report. And it further had the scientific briefing document in relation to the 3-sector study on adaptation and resilience, and also upgrading of informal settlement, and had the stakeholder consultations in relation to the informal settlements with the informal settlement expert through the informal settlement expert dialogue, and also had the consultations through the public colloquium on careers and skills linked to just transition with the Vaal University of Technology. And then in the second quarter, the PCC released the reports on the public perceptions and attitudes relating to climate change and the just transition in South Africa, as well as the short-term private sector-led employment strategy from Mpumalanga. It then held the roundtable discussions on climate finance and on the climate talks, focusing on the financing of financing the transformation and the role of international climate finance. And then lastly, Chair, before I hand over to the CFO, Farhan Shamsuddin, who will deal with the finances, we have the constituency capacity building fund at Nedlac, which is program 3, and which this really seeks to capacitate social partners to make meaningful contributions at Nedlac and basically level the playing field. In this quarter, the community constituency convened the leadership meeting on the GNU governance, the national dialogue, and the election outcomes. And the second quarter, it attended the inaugural JET municipal conference and also convened the quarterly principals meeting. Its organized labor had the midterm labor school and attended the 13th Brick Trade Unions Forum. And the governance task team, as you may know, Chair, has concluded the engagements on the Nedlac bill as well as the Nedlac constitution. The bill is currently, in the second quarter, was being considered by the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, and the constitution, which was finalized earlier in the year, is now being implemented. And in this quarter 2, the task team, the terms of reference of the governance structures were approved, which is part of the implementation of the constitution, and also the delegation of work to MANCO, including the approval of the policies as well as the appointment of the Nedlac executive management. This now has been formally delegated to the MANCO. And then the corporate services had the policies on the protection of Personal Information Procedures Act. Protection of Personal Information Act Procedures Manual that was finalized in this quarter, and also promotion of access to information manual. And then in the second quarter, concluded the training and development policy, remuneration policy, revised performance management policy, and also we had the communications on the Nedlac history through which was distributed at the Elijah Bahai inaugural lecture, and also had the presentations to the delegation from Mali, which came to Nedlac just to understand how we work and what lessons they can learn from Nedlac. And we also produced the first and the second quarter Nedlac reports, or rather Nedlac newsletters. And I will now hand over to the CFO to look into the finances.
Thanks, Nobuntu, and through you, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. Yes, I'll be taking you through the Q1 and Q2 revenue and expenditure numbers for Nedlac, with maybe more of a focus on Q2, considering the Q2 figures are also year to date. But nonetheless, starting with the Q1 numbers, in terms of our revenues, I think to focus on some of the material line items. On the grant revenue, we received our grant revenue for the first quarter being 18.9 million. You'll notice it's slightly down from the prior year comparison on the budget cuts that were communicated by the National Treasury to the Department of Employment and Labour. So we did experience budget cuts in the prior year, but also in the current and future years. So that has decreased our grant revenue. In terms of the next line, donor funds, you'll see we had a budget of 4.1 million and actual of nil. I'll come back to that in my next slide just to give a bit more detail in terms of the year-to-date numbers on that. In our expenditure, employee compensation of employees, there was a slight saving due to vacancies, and goods and services saving again. This was because normally in Q1 we're doing a lot of procurement, and they're usually spending then increases in Q2, which we'll come to and see shortly. So in terms of our overall Q1 numbers, we were looking at a deficit of 1.1 million, which is largely due to the donor funding, which I'll come through shortly. Nobuntu, if we can go to the next slide, please. I'm looking okay, I'm in Q2 now. Thanks. In terms of the Q2 numbers, I think to start off with, again, the grants revenue, we received what we are supposed to receive as part of our first tranche. Therefore, we recognize the full revenue, what we received up until the end of Q2, but no variance. The donor funding, as you'll see the budget for, sorry, maybe just to add before I go to donor funding, the year-to-date and the budget for Q2 takes into account the revised budget. The revised budget was approved by our governance structures in Q2. This takes into account our retained surplus as well, which was approved by the Treasury. It was a small amount of 1.8 million, but we needed to incorporate that in the budget, but also consider within our budget a decrease in the donor funding, as there's less, as we're waiting for confirmation of donor funding. The donor funding, just to talk more of the donor funding and to refresh the memory of the honorable members, our donor funds is specifically in relation to our program 4, the PCC, who joined us 2 years ago. In the past year, the prior financial year, there was no need to draw down on any donor funds, as we did have sufficient funding available to fund the activities. However, in the current year, we've seen an increase again in their spending, and what the decrease in our budgets as well, we've required to draw down on those funds. So in Q2, we did start requesting drawdowns for the first time on these donor funds. These donor funds are kept by the African Climate Foundation, which is what we refer to as almost the donor fiscal host for the PCC. Sorry.
Please wrap up your time.
Okay, apologies. I'll wrap up within a minute. Just to say that we have made a request for the donor funds. We did start receiving them post Q2, and we have started to receive those funds in Q3. Unfortunately, it does not reflect in Q2. The ARC has also notified us to ensure that we try and get these funds upfront instead of towards the end of the quarter, just to ensure we do not run into any cash flow issues. And just in terms of the overall, to summarize, in terms of our overall expenditure is in line with our revised budget. So there are no issues there. The main issue for us as we move into the final 2 quarters of the year is to ensure we do receive all donor funding as per our budget, and then obviously expense and disperse within our revised budget. Chair, I won't go through the next slides, but it just basically summarizes. I've summarized the next few slides already and the commentary on the expenditure and the revenues. Thank you, Chair, and apologies for going past the time.
Thank you. PSA. PSA. Productivity, South Africa.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to share my slides. Good morning once again, Honorable Chair, committee members, Honorable Minister and Deputy Ministers, Acting DG, the DAO members, as well as other entities, all protocol observed. I'm just trying to share here. Let me just put my camera on as well. Chair, if you can just confirm once you see. Good morning once again. I'm Amelia Naidu, the Acting Chief Executive Officer from Productivity South Africa. I'm going to request, Chair, that I can turn off my camera thereafter so that the network is not affected.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. I'm joined today with our CFO as well, Ms. Upuhle Sudumane, and she will just go through the file later on in the presentation. I'm going to keep it to our summary, noting that, of course, the members have received the presentations and have gone through it. I'm just going to reiterate the point of what Productivity SA is all about and our actual mandate, noting that we have a social as well as economic responsibility, and this forms part of our mandate of government to promote employment and productivity, thereby contributing to South Africa's socio-economic development and competitiveness. Our Honourable Minister actually reiterated the point and the importance of the entity, but you will see through the performance as well, some of our challenges and some of the corrective actions. So our vision to lead and inspire productive and competitive South Africa, and the way we go about doing it is by diagnosing as well as implementing the solutions that's aimed at improving productivity at all levels. That means at an enterprise level as well as a sector level, and we also look at it at a national and policy level. Our structure, I just wanted to reiterate the point of, how we're composed, as well as the fact that our staff establishment is 126. We have a vacancy rate of 26%. Actually, it has moved up to 33% now. So our functions has an entity, and why I'm putting in these points as well, again, I know the committee has heard it previously, but our core functions is to promote the culture of productivity in the workplace and facilitate and evaluate productivity improvement and competencies in the workplace. And that's done through our competitiveness improvement services. Now, this program is partly funded by Department of Employment and Labour, but then we have special projects like that with the ILO, the International Labour Organization, the Productivity Ecosystem for Decent Work project that we have underway, the Workplace Challenge program that we have in partnership with the DTIC, which celebrated 25 years. And we have also other international partners like JICA, the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, which also fund another program that is the Quality and Productivity Improvement Program. Then second to that is to support initiatives aimed at preventing job losses. Now, this is the Business Turnaround Recovery Program, which forms part of our core function, but it is a program that is funded by the UIF that is based on a 3-year agreement, which we have to renew every 3 years. The fourth and the fifth aspect of our actual functions is to measure and evaluate productivity and competitiveness in the workplace and overall economy, and maintain a database of productivity and competitiveness systems. as well as publicize this and undertake productivity-related research. So this is through our research, innovation, and statistics, which is also funded by the Department of Employment and Labor. So when we actually implement these solutions, or once we actually have studies that come out or research, then we disseminate this information, but this includes the productivity statistics as well as the IMD competitiveness rating. So I'm going to touch on the actual, outcomes that we have to, play a role in. So this is outcome-oriented goals, and it's about improving productivity for sustained inclusive growth and competitiveness, promoting full and productive employment, as well as contribution to wealth creation and income growth, and improving workplace collaboration and dialogue. So to summarize the achievements for Q1 and Q2, we have programs. So our program 1 is our administration function. And here it's to strengthen the institutional capacity of Productivity SA to deliver on its mandate and be financially sustainable. So that includes our corporate services as well as HR and our corporate relations, which is marketing and communication. So I'm going to give you all a summary of Q1 and 2, since you will see both indicators that were not achieved were actually the same for Q1 and Q2. So in Q1, we had 9 indicators in total, of which we achieved 6 of the 9. And I spoke about the administration. So where we didn't have achievement related to the payment within 30 days. And I will just reiterate the reason behind that, further on. So that was for both Q1 and Q2. Program 2, which is to support government programs aimed at sustainable employment and income growth. So this is more of our enterprise support for SMMEs. So this is competitiveness improvement services to capacitate, SMMEs, small and medium-sized businesses, as well as your micro, including your informal sector. Here, this is where we capacitate entrepreneurs as well as enterprises to improve their productivity and competitiveness within the sectors as well. Here we have achieved 100% for both quarters. Program 3, this is where our gap is at this moment, which is to the business turnaround recovery program. This is to prevent the job losses. In Q1 and Q2, we didn't achieve the targets. This was mainly due to the fact that the agreement with the UIF was delayed in signing off the agreement. So we did not sign the agreement until end of July. That was in Q2. And thereafter, obviously, to achieve that target as well became a challenge. So both for Q1 and Q2, we did not achieve that target. So those are 2 indicators out of the 3. Then the last one is generation and dissemination of productivity-related research and statistics. In Q1, there was a actual KPI which related to the IMD competitiveness rating. So that's one of our successes that happened, where we managed to launch the IMD rating to show how we are doing as South Africa in relation to other countries. And we actually improved on our productivity overall, or the competitiveness rating compared to in previous years. But there are different factors that are involved, which the study is made available as well. But in Q2, we did not have that as an indicator. So you will see the overall performance for Q1 was 67%. In Q2, we dropped to 63% due to the fact that the indicators dropped, but it's the exact same indicators that we did not achieve. So I've just kept the summary of the non-achievement. So in Q1, when it came to the 30-day payment, and you will see this also relates to the finances itself. So as an entity, we have many gaps within the organization that when it comes to the financial sustainability, because if we do not have, and it relates to also indicator 9 and 10, that's below here, that relates to business turnaround recovery. If we don't have the agreement signed, it affects even the payment process. But we're also trying to streamline the internal processes when it comes to payments within 30 days. So we have identified this as a risk for us as an entity to pay SMMEs within the 30-day period. And therefore, we have created an SMME database, and we're hoping by Q4 we would achieve this target. So the business turnaround recovery program has mentioned, because it was a delay in the signing of the agreement, we did not achieve both the indicators at all. It was a zero achievement. We had to focus on saving 450 jobs, and that was for 9 enterprises, but we did not achieve that in Q1. In Q2, again, just the summary of what we achieved and what we didn't achieve. Here you will see the same two indicators that we did not achieve, but due to the KPIs dropping, therefore it's a 63% instead. So it was the same same three indicators. But again, here we managed to move on once the Business Turnaround Recovery Program agreement was signed with the UIF. We managed to move a little on the target itself. We managed to, impact on 346 jobs as opposed to 1,700 and support 7 enterprises. But also noting that, and I'm touching on some of the challenges, that the funding agreement was signed, but the actual funding did not come through until last week. Okay, some of the highlights, because yes, performance-wise, we are very, we did not make what we're supposed to make, which is we are aiming at 100% performance, but we are dependent on these agreements as well. But for highlights, we managed to support 617 enterprises, SMMEs themselves. That's a 49% of the annual target. So we right on that mark of almost 50% for the year. And then also the number of entrepreneurs, workers, and managers, that is for informal and formal sector, 1,303. So we managed to overachieve that target as well. The number of Black-owned businesses that we're supporting, that's on average a 78%. Our target is 80%, but we managed to achieve that over the year. Women-owned enterprises, 44%. Youth-owned enterprises, 29%. People with disabilities, that's 2%. And then, overall employment for the Workplace Challenge Program is 3,460 employees that it's impacting on. Further to that, some of the successes is the International Labour Organization Productivity Ecosystem for Decent Work program we have underway. We are implementing customized solutions that we have actually developed with the ILO so that we can address the issues within enterprises and bring in the South African version of implementing continuous improvement and being successful at what we are doing and being able to sustain these entities. These are in the micro enterprises themselves, in the small and medium-sized enterprises. So we created a brand new program that's an outcome of this ILO project itself, and we are busy implementing this. It started in May of this year, and we are expecting to finish it in September next year. But currently in Q1 and 2, we managed to stay on our targets as well for that special project. This also contributes to the revenue generation strategy for the organization. Second to that is the quality and productivity improvement, which is another highlight. So the minister actually alluded to our productivity awards that we held in October. And on that productivity awards date, we launched the quality and productivity improvement category, where we are showcasing what the impact has been within the enterprises that we've supported over the last year through this joint intervention with JICA, as well as the Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Further to that, the finalists and the winners for this award goes to the African Kaizen Initiative. So in the last quarter, that means in October, there was an African Kaizen conference that was held in Tunisia, where we participate in that, and we get our clients to participate as well, or the other entities, within South Africa to participate that have been on this JICA QPI project as well. So that's part of the highlights that we like to just recognize. We had 6 regional workshops. That means we have a target of 9 regional workshops and 9 provincial workshops in total. We did 6 of them. The remaining 3 will be done in the last quarter. So this is where we showcase for the SMMEs the type of support that has been done. The SMMEs themselves come and exhibit their products itself at the event, and that's within the province, but also they share their lessons and they share what they have done differently and how they overcome some of their challenges. In saying that, we also had the Productivity Month launch, which was in October, on the 1st of October, and we had a number of events throughout the month. I spoke about the IMD competitiveness launch as well that was held, and that's done with the IMD themselves. And then, of course, the productivity awards that we managed to achieve as well. This all plays a role, on the sustainability of productivity SA and the ultimate revenue generation strategy. I'm going to hand over now to, let me just highlight on the challenges before I hand over to the CFO. So I've spoken through a couple of things on the challenges, and the impact of the late conclusion of the UIF agreement is the biggest challenge that we were faced to achieving the first quarter results as well as the second quarter performance itself. We are very reliant on these agreements, with the funders, and that is the UIF as well as the DTIC, as well as our other special projects. So the agreement was concluded at the end of July. The delay in transfer of funds as well is critical to sustain the entity, and you'll see the financial impact because if we do not receive the funds, we are not able to also deliver on the services, which is to sustain these jobs. But we do know that there's internal processes that need to be followed, and therefore we try to keep open communication, but it makes us put our program on hold and the achievement of the APP itself. Structural mandate is not funded. That's one of our biggest challenges, and the moratorium is actually affecting this as well, because if we are unable to fill posts, we're unable to deliver on these targets as well. But this comes back to financial sustainability of the entity. For us to be able to fill the posts, we do need to have the finances available for us to be able to recruit and place those positions so that they can deliver on the services required. Productivity SA requires 2 to 3 years of additional funding to stabilize, but we have enough revenue generation projects to keep us financially sustainable thereafter. But having the core not in place is what is affecting our operations as a whole. Productivity SA also faces this financial challenge of the post-retirement medical aid costs, and I know the committee has heard this many times, but this totals 5.3 million of our annual costs as well. And we currently are sitting at a deficit, but at the end of the year, if we are going to be completing or we foresee a 10 million deficit, 5.3 million is actually from the post-retirement medical aid. It is not covered by the organization or by the DAO funds. Okay, I'm going to hand over then to our CFO. CFO, if I can please ask you to share from your side, because my network is giving me a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting CEO. And allow me to say all protocols observed, Honorable Chair. I'm going to try share my slide now. It is not allowing me. Shared. Chair, are you able to see my the presentation?
Not as yet.
Hearing on my side. Okay, I'm sharing again. If I may confirm now again, Chair.
Now, proceed.
Thank you very much. Chair, I'm going to focus only on 2 slides. First slide being slide 25. That is speaking to the Q1 financial performance. From a consolidation perspective, Chair, we are 26% behind when it comes to our total expenditure. It's a normal trend, if I may add. It is extensively slow, yes, but it is a normal trend we see in Productivity SA as we focus our efforts on closing off audit activities and the prior financial year, normally in Q1. The CEO mentioned about the BTNR funding agreement, Chair, which was not finalized in time, which really negatively impacted our operations. So it warranted us to just put in some operational maneuvers to curb the negative impact within Q1. We had the program put on hold from the 6th of June, and therefore you'd see that the majority of the under expenditure was on BTNR. We did have special projects that we could continue implementing with the capacity from BTNR. We know that in Productivity SA, our special projects, they average about 6 to 9 months to fully implement. Therefore, we normally see that Q1 is more of a closeout of prior year special projects. And therefore, we see then the delay in expenditure in Q1 in line with the delay in the revenue generation. We also started the year off with what the acting CEO mentioned, with a moratorium on our non-revenue generating vacancies. And thus we have this delayed cost, and what one might say is a cost rather than a saving on vacancies. We also saw quite a high staff attrition rate in Q1, and that was mainly because of some of the uncertainties that we were faced with the continuity and the financial sustainability of the organization. Thus, our cost of employees was contained within Q1. Within administration, we also did not spend much administration. It does form part of the savings, and this was mainly in our ICT space. We have implemented a strategy of cost cutting by reducing outsourced services through contract renegotiations and cancellations, and the reduction of license usages, and also in the consolidations of some of our business critical applications, which is part of our long-term ICT strategy to try and return the entity to financial sustainability. From a revenue perspective, Chair, we are 38% behind the target for Q1, and that was mainly driven by the fact that BT&R UIF agreement was not signed, and therefore we could not move with the new implementations that were planned. Most of our projects have now started, and we are focusing our efforts a lot within Q3 and Q4 towards a catch-up project or catch-up plan, where the resources will be focusing on catching up on those revenue targets, Chair. Chair, I'm going to now move over to slide 28, which then summarizes Q2. From a total revenue perspective on consolidation, we were further behind in Q2. Although activity did increase, we were still behind by 32% on total revenue and on total expenditure as well by 35%. With a mix of revenue targets, our revenue did increase. So we saw 2.6 million in Q1, and in Q2, we saw just over 7 million. So as much as we are not reaching targets, we did see an increase in activity and therefore an increase in our top line. The target has not been reached to date, but as I mentioned, we have a catch-up plan that we've implemented. And the catch-up plan is focusing more on the existing contracts where we've received advance funds, and we have to focus on our resource utilizations to earn the money from those funds and improve our top line. And that is the focus for Q3 and Q4. We do have a target of 52 million extra revenue that we ought to earn in order to break even above the grant we get from the department. So the plan is to catch up 30 million between Q3 and 4. And just to emphasize, that plan is based on projects that have already been signed off. As the CEO mentioned, we do have projects that are signed off, and that's where we're focusing. By the end of September, we were still awaiting our first payment for UIF. So even though the agreement was signed off, the money hadn't come in by the end of the first quarter. It was delayed into November. Now, without the funds, we had limited capacity to generate according to the plan, and that is why we have to accelerate, and we are focusing on accelerating in Q3 and Q4. The total deficit run rate for Q2 improved, although we're still reporting a financial deficit in Q2, but that has improved from Q1, and that is mainly because we were able to now start moving with the BT&R and the UIF. Also, the WPC funds from the DTI came in time, which we truly appreciate, because that has assisted us on a consolidation level. Even though the usage of the grant has been slow, we do know that the WPC grant will equalize and break even at the end of the financial year. So it's sort of an interim surplus that has saved us there in Q2. We have a big project that the acting CEO spoke about, also related.
Please wrap up, your time is expired.
Relating to the ILO project, which has paid advance, Chair, I will wrap up, which has paid an advance already of 2.8 million. And that was going to form part of our revenue catch-up plan. So in overall, Chair, from a financial perspective, with a mix of revenue targets that have been achieved in Q2, our revenue increase We're still not there in terms of the plan, but we have a catch-up revenue generation plan that we're focusing on in Q3 and Q4 that is made up of money that has already been received on one end in advance and on the other end from special projects that are already signed off. From just an audit perspective, 1 minute to wrap up, Chair, we are still proud to have reported a clean audit with 2 housekeeping audit findings that were left over. The first one is a 30-day payment to SMMEs, which we achieved in the past month. So we're confident by year end, this will not be a problem. And the second one that we're working towards within our HR space that related to some business continuity changes that happened there that we are working with the internal auditors to resolve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, without any further waste of time, I'll then take those members who would want to speak on the 3 presentations. And remember the 5 minutes rule in the first bite. So for all those members who would want to speak, please raise your hand so that I note them. And then once I allow you to speak, should it be taking up other hands that out of what has been raised. Let's see Honorable Mkonto on my side. Mkonto. Honorable Maitso. And then Honorable Mtsele. Okay. In that order, we'll take Honorable Mkonto. I see your video is on. I'm sure I'm gonna be asking for permission.
Yes, Chair. Good morning, Chair, to you, honorable members, the Minister and the Deputy Ministers and their teams. Chair, I will really request that I switch off my video to enhance my audio output because I have a network challenges where I am.
Thank you. Proceed, Honorable Mkonto.
Okay, Chair. Chair, first of all, I would like to acknowledge the presentations. Thanks very much for those who took their time and prepared for the challenges for this meeting. Chair, I would like to make a comment on what the minister has presented. In overall, Chair, before she stopped the DG to do a presentation, I was about to say, Chair, we are having a little bit of a challenge where the minister will make a preview that is 100% administrative. Because then it pushes the acting DG to repeat what she presents or the deputy ministers presents as a preview. Because I was expecting that at least there must be a political flair or the political aspect of the preview. We are writing questions to the minister on a weekly basis. Some of the questions are of national interest, but we don't get any sense that the minister during our meetings, portfolio committee meetings, we don't get any sense that the minister does receive those questions and is ready maybe to answer in sort of put some clarity on the questions that we write on a weekly basis. We are having mines that are illegal mining activities in the country. maybe if those mines can be legalized, we know the minister is not in that field, but we know there are executive meetings. If those mines can be legalized, our job creation in South Africa can be improved. There are labor inspectors that are denied access to premises. Nothing is said about that. We had members of a labor union who did not allow the minister to address them. That labor union is registered with us as Department of Employment and Labor, but we are quiet. And when that department acts against those workers, that's when maybe we are going to talk. I think, Chair, there is a lot of labor issues that are going on in the country politically, but we don't get that during the preview of the minister. I will then go, Chair, to the presentations. Chair, as always, we applaud the CCMA for the performance, but we are always getting complaints that employers, when verdicts of the CCMA are against them, they don't implement them. And we maybe now, Chair, if we can be given a report as to how many of those cases and how is CCMA attending on them, because they are doing their work. But at the end of the day, if the conclusion of the matter is against the employer, they just ignore it and they don't implement it. They will always implement when it is against the workers. And then with Nedlac, Chair, the informal settlement dialogue, I can have a feeling that it has to do in some way with migrant workers. It's migrant workers that establishes informal settlements around cities. If we can get the details of the report of that dialogue. The productivity SA. The job preservation, they said it has decreased. I can't remember which quarter. Can that be quantified, Chair, so that we are able to follow? Thanks, Chair. That will be my contribution.
Time, I was just going to be saying in a few seconds, you'll be expired. Honorable Maitso, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to the Minister and the Deputy Ministers, including the acting DG with the team. And Chair, let me also welcome and appreciate the presentation that the department and the entities presented here, Chair. I'll go straight to, but first, Chair, to also comment the insightful input of the Minister in terms of addressing key of the challenges, but also the success story on the work that is done by both the department and the entities. And we want to say to the Minister that the Minister, you have our overall support in as far as the work is concerned, and furthermore, Minister, we will appreciate that in future that we can convene even the workshops, so that were able to familiarize ourselves with the progress of the work that is being done by these entities, including the department. And that's the support that we'll provide as the portfolio committee, Minister. Chair, let me go straight to the CCMA, and as Honorable Mkondo indicated earlier on, that this entity, Chair, it's always 100% doing well in as far as its mandate is concerned, and we want to applaud that, Chair. And I've identified some few aspects in terms of the strategic goals and achievements, which is also another success story of the entity itself, as well as the training and capacity building. Here, Chair, in terms of the training interventions, we have seen that they have even exceeded their target significantly. So they've got 19 training sessions in Q2, which they have delivered out of the target of the 16. So this, in essence, is an overachievement, and which the entity outperformed itself in terms of its function. Chair, however, there are also challenges which one needs to comment in terms of the areas for improvement. And this is despite the overall positive performance, of course, where the entity will require attention. For instance, Chair, the number of interventions conducted to promote effective dispute resolutions in essential services, they fell short of the annual target. So here we've got with only 2 out of 8 interventions completed in Q1. So this indicates a potential gap in proactive engagement in essential services, so which could be a critical in maintaining labor peace. So it's an area for concern, this one. Now, in conclusion, in terms of the entity, the CCMA performance in Q1 and Q2 of the financial year 2024 and 2025 demonstrates strong operational capabilities and a commitment to its strategic goals. However, Chair, this entity must address the challenges in specific areas, such as the one that I mentioned, the essential services interventions, to ensure effectiveness in its mandate. And Chair, the financial health appears to be stable, but there is a decline in revenue, which will be monitored closely to safeguard the future operations. Now, Chair, the question emanating from this comment that I just made, what specific measures did the entity put in place to ensure that the overachievement of training interventions, which reached 19 in Q2 against a target of 16, is sustainable and effectively addresses stakeholder needs, as noted in page 20 of the presentation? Fast forward, given the reported 7% decline in revenue, what strategies did the entity implement to enhance its financial sustainability and ensure that it can continue to meet its operational targets effectively, as noted in page 25? Lastly, but not least, Honorable Chair, how did the entity address the shortfall in the number of interventions conducted to promote effective dispute resolution in essential services, which in this regard, only 2 out of 8 annual targets in Q1 and Q2, as noted in page 21, were achieved? I will pause there, Honorable Chair, and thank you.
Just expired. You are on time. Honorable Slepe, please proceed. Honorable Slepe, unmute and proceed.
Yeah, Chair, sorry for inconvenience. I am driving. I was trying to get a place to park. I will be very brief. I don't know, am I audible, Chair?
We can hear you, proceed.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll be very, 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 very brief, Chair. Mine is just two questions to Minister and the Nedlac, but the one for the Nedlac, I just want to check the labor laws that Nedlac just presented. Does those laws apply to every sector of employment? For instance, your domestic workers, waiters, and securities. That is a class of employment that has been neglected. It seems like no one is like worried or having put attention to those class of employees. There's nothing that I know of the domestic workers, any law that protects those people. Some of them, they've been working as a domestic workers for more than 30, 40 years. After servicing that number of years, they go home without getting any service money. There's no laws from the department that is protecting them. Then I just want to know what is the intervention of the Nedlac in that particular space of the domestic and the waiters. With the security is even worse, because when you check with the SIRA is gazetting that one security personnel is not getting less than 20,000 a month. And then when you check with the companies, they are paying them less than 7,000 a month. You then check what is happening with this whole money. If you're a company, you can make use of this 5,000 to run the cost of everything, transport, everything. Then I'm checking. There's no law that can protect that poor class of employees that has been neglected by our laws in South Africa. Then the second point is that, Minister, can you put us to confidence that I'm just listening, a lot of positions here is a vacant position as the Department of Labor and Employment. Can't we lead by example? That we cannot have the acting people for such long period. Are they not qualified for those positions? Because I think it's the problem that we always having people who are acting. Then there would be no proper accountability if one is acting for a certain period, and then I don't know whether there's a law that allows people to act for this period, or the department to have a vacant position for more than 4 or 5 years. People acting. I don't know what is it that people are not appointed in that particular position. I'd like that one, Minister. Can you please intervene in the position? Like we have acting DG, and we've been complaining with this thing, but there's nothing happening. Please, Minister, can you intervene in that space of people have been acting? I think that was my submission. I thank you.
And if I'm an expert indeed, Honorable Mansele, you're the last on the minute.
Oh, thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, good day to you, and also good day to Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Ministers, and the acting DG and the team. the honorable members at large, and everyone, including our guests. Good day. Chair, I'm not going to be long. It's just quick questions. Firstly, I want to concur with the earlier speakers with regard to the level of performance, in particular CCMA's well-recorded performance. But equally, there are a number of questions that need to be clarified, so that as we appreciate and the both challenges and successes that we have made through their performances, we are able to ensure that we don't leave anything to chance. I will start with the CCMA chair in appreciating their progress and also areas of difficulty. And if perhaps they can just elaborate more, they may have done that, or I may have missed, with regard to how have they dealt with the situation of the accumulated surplus of 606 million. I'm relating this to also to their ongoing budgetary constraints. Yeah. So if they can just elaborate on that point. The second one, Chair, relates to the issue again of Nedlac. Nedlac report covers a number of areas with regard to progress that has been made in various chambers or in various matters that have been taken through by the various chambers. The issue again relates to the UIF configuration and other entities. I think it should be UIF and the and compensation fund reconfiguration. There is a reference to the unhappiness of labor. If, for instance, we can be helped to understand what are the real challenges that emanate from that unhappiness. And then the next area, Chair, relates to the last presentation, that is of the productivity SA. There is an account that is given, Chair, that relates to funding through the UIF, and also the difficulties that seem to make that arrangement work, to the extent that they, in fact, almost spend the whole financial year without agreed funding being transferred. Can they just shed more light as to what really are the underlying problems, which essentially result in the PSA being unable to fulfill part of its commitments, or including the programs that they are supposed to be taking forward? The second point is with regard to the funding of the structural mandate. What are their views and the vision with regard to how they see that being addressed, that is between the short and to the long term, other than just getting funding or loans, whatever, in whatever arrangement that they get with UIF, how they see it being resolved. The final point here is with regard to the post-retirement medical aid. Are we still together, Chair?
Yes. Honorable Slep, you can mute your
There's
mic.
another meeting.
No, Honorable Slep, mute your mic.
Oh,
Or ICT help us to mute his mic.
please, I'm driving. Can they help me?
Please
Thank you,
help us.
Please, that
My
drive
apologies.
with us.
I'll keep a minute, Honorable Nontsele. Let's just address this. Okay, then we can proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Sorry, by talking about, I didn't note as well that my mic is still on. Honorable Chair, my last point is with regard to the point again from the PSA, the issue relating to post-retirement medical aid. I'm not very sure, Chair, how to frame so that the question doesn't sound as though one is insensitive to the post-retirement challenges, which everyone should, in fact, avoid. But I'm, however, unable to understand as to how, for instance, in the current arrangement, where when people are in the employ, such arrangement is not taken care of. Because in the manner that it's coming through across, is as though this should be a sponsorship, not a co-payment arrangement, as the medical aid arrangement would come about. I'm raising this, Chair, particularly with regard to even other experiences, including our own, that some of the medical aid does make a post-retirement arrangement, and that is covered through the co-payment arrangements that are put in place. So the question is perhaps to understand in much more deeper detail as to what exactly the regime is that is being used, so that we don't just note and go by, and later on we may find ourselves to have in fact endorsed a process that necessarily should have gone a different way than currently is the situation. So firstly is to understand how, for instance, they implement their medical aid and whether the post-retirement, has it been anticipated in terms of their deductions and so on, including contributions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nansel. As I give to the ministry and the entities, be guided by ourselves on how we want to approach it, Minister, whether we start with the entities to respond and you come later to conclude, or you start by guiding from the beginning. So if we can just have those responses on the three presentations. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I would request that we start with the entities and the DG. Then the Deputy Minister and myself will come last. Thank you.
Person, this is Cameron Morajani, CCMA. May I start first before my other colleagues?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. On the question of the outcomes and some employers not implementing, it's true. There are employers who don't comply. There are legal processes that are in place that are being followed in order to ensure that the outcomes are implemented. There's two ways. One way it's through the CCMA itself, what we call Section 143 enforcements. And I can add, Chairperson, that we do have a fund which was supposed to be self-sustaining, where the CCMA, assisted by the department, pays the sheriffs to enforce money outcomes that are contained in the awards. It requires enhancement. That is as far as their part is concerned. And I must also indicate importantly that when it comes to enforcement of awards, as Honorable Mkonto has correctly captured, once the award is issued, like in court when the order is issued, it is the responsibility of the party in whose favor the award has been made to see to it that it's implemented. But there are a number of challenges that is encountered there, because sometimes the award has two parts to it. It's the financial part and also the performance part. Financial part is when an award says an employer must pay an X amount. And the performance part is when the award says an employee must be re-employed or be reinstated. If there's no payment of money, you go to the sheriff, which will assist the indigent, those that can't afford, we assist them. And then those that requires the performance where there should be a re-employment or reinstatement, that goes to court because that's the contempt of court. Because the award of the CCMA is equivalent to a court order in as far as that party is concerned. Many cases are unreported to us there. So you find that the outcome is there, but it can't be implemented because the worker has given up. I think this is where the real concern comes from Honorable Mkhonto. What we can do, Chairperson, in the next quarter, when we report, in our report, we will include a portion that talks about outcomes issued and also outcomes implemented, at least as far as CCMA is concerned. We do not have the data or statistics of the enforcement that happens at court. We have been trying to create a common system between CCMA and Labour Court, but we can't afford it because we wanted to duplicate so that the conduit between CCMA and Labour Court becomes seamless when it comes to enforcement and also the contempt proceedings for people who are not implementing the awards. So on that question, we shall provide a report in the next quarter in that regard. On Honorable Maecho, training, thank you very much for the compliments also from Honorable Mkhonto and also Honorable Maecho. On the submissions of areas of improvement, we've noted that, Chairperson. In terms of the interventions of the Essential Services Committee, we had some challenges there budgetary-wise in ensuring that the ESC is able to meet its requirement, but after the approval of our adjusted budget, so we will adjust and adapt to make sure that we are on course on that. As matters stand, if you look at the report, the detail on slide 21, on those two targets, 8 each, we are on course. For the quarter, the Essential Services Committee has achieved the target, so they have not underperformed. Essential Services has been performing excellently for some time. In terms of the projected performance moving forward, I can assure members, in terms of the plans that we have and monitoring systems or the monitoring systems that we have, we should be able to meet that requirement from the ESC, despite the fact that its job here in terms of the essential services, there are other legal challenges that makes it difficult for the AC to deliver its functions, which we've delivered in different conferences, which requires legislative reform for us to be able to achieve better in that regard. But we can give an assurance that on where we are and as projected in the last 2 quarters, we should be able to meet those targets. That should address the question relating to slide number 20, together with slide number 21 on essential services and training. The decline in revenue, let me deal with this question together with the question of our Honorable Nontsel. There's a scheduled meeting, 2 meetings that we're going to have with the department. There's one meeting specifically that is going to talk about the income streams that we have in mind that we want to propose. We have been trying for quite some time to make those proposals. So now there is an engagement that we are currently busy with, which will include from our side experts as well, because we've got a panel of experts on economics, issues of finance, and also some of the programs that we have planned, which in our view, with the support of the ministry, of course, because the bulk of what we want to do will require that part, because if we can turn that corner and be supported on the proposals, strong proposals that we have to create a self-sustaining entity, because from the grant we invest, you receive interest from that. There's certain trainings that we do and certain licenses that we do, for example, but it's all cost recovery. The formula will change, but there are other initiatives that we've taken, which I think if we agree with those who will be part of those technical committee to understand that if we can achieve those, I think we will have a lifetime solution to the financial sustainability question. But we have requested the audience, but we were approached actually initially by the department that we discuss that aspect. So I'm hoping, Chair, in the later quarters, preferably just before the finalization of the budget in February or so, we should be in a position to have made some material income changing proposals, and if agreed with the support that I think will help, is going to make a great impact on just not the grant but also accumulation, because there's other aspects relating to legal reform, for example, that if CCMA is able to income generate sufficiently to a certain extent, we should be able to retain what is accumulated, because that's part of the challenges that we have, because when you accumulate until the last day of the financial year. So it is going to roll over to the new financial year. Now, sometimes it may give an impression that we have underspent, but it's not. It's a mixture of issues which sometimes people misunderstand. It's just that people are not asking proper what this means so that we can explain that part. But we should be fine. So on the first 2 quarters on the accumulated surplus, that money is going to self-correct in the last two quarters. Remember, we're still in the early quarters. So when money is paid, gets invested, and then it's prospective, it doesn't go backwards. So that's the idea, but it's not because of under expenditure. It's because it does self-correct because it's committed until the end of the financial year. So unless the CFO can explain differently, but it's not a matter to be concerned about. It will self-correct in the last 2 quarters. Because we've got annual targets, as you can see from the report. I've covered all the questions, Chairperson, that deals with the question raised by the 3 members, 3 honourable members. If there's anything we missed, we will be happy to respond. Thank you.
Is that this? Nedlac?
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Now I'm going to, yes. So from Nedlac, there were questions that were raised in relation to the informal settlement dialogues. I'm going to ask my colleague Dumisani Momalo from the PCC to respond to that question. And then there was also a question that was raised by Honorable Sello in relation, no, Honorable Silepe on the labor laws. I will take that question. So let me allow Dumisani to come in and then I'll respond to the second question. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, and through you, Chair. Thanks, Nobuntu. Colleague, good afternoon to the honourable members. The question around the informal settlements work, or the dialogues in particular, this was an expert dialogue, which in the main was really in responding to the literature review that was already done. So at the inception of the project, the first task was to really look at the literature on some of the work that has been done before. We did a bit of case studies and did some, limited interviews with the likes of Pambili Informal Settlements, as well as you know, the Kalspruit informal settlements community. And what we were trying to understand there was issues of population pressures, environmental landscape, and some of the economic you know, indicators that are important to those communities. But in the main, it was also the issue of climate vulnerabilities as well as hazards that really affect those communities, which common amongst them is really the issue of flooding and heat wave. And we're assessing these indicators across these two communities. That literature really gave us a base document, which then informed the convening of the different experts. These experts ranged from the CSIR, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, as well as government in the form of Department of Human Settlements, as well as other players in the space to really respond to what we potentially could have been missing in terms of the literature review, but also give us insights on some of the work that they're already doing that could help us or help inform how we're thinking about lending the advice related to just transition aspects, but also the necessary climate response, which pertains to the upgrading of informal settlements. This chair was also partly to respond to the white paper by the Department of Human Settlements, which intends to consider elements around the upgrading of informal settlements. I think it was released early this year in February for public commenting. So this will essentially, in the end, once we've concluded the work, support you know, the finalization of legislation or pieces of legislation related to that white paper. So that's the intention of the dialogue, or that was the basis for the dialogue, and we continue to engage on research around this work program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dumisani. So the two questions that were raised in relation to the labor laws was whether the amendments that are dealt with or engagements that are being done at Nedlac apply to all sectors of workers. And Chairperson, yes, the engagements, they apply to all sections of employment, as the amendments have been primarily on issues relating to the Labor Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the National Minimum Wage, and the Employment Equity Act. I must indicate, Chairperson, that there were certain issues that relate to the UI as well as compensation fund, which those issues could not be dealt with at length during these negotiations, given that there's the current process that's being underway on the reconfiguration of the UI and the compensation fund. And I would believe, Chairperson, that when we engage on that in the next year, and because the agreement has been that government will table proposals to Nedlac, and that will probably happen in the next year, and then and further engagements can then take place in relation to those issues. Then, Chairperson, the second question, or I must also indicate that this is a Q3 progress, but is that the task team is developing the Nedlac report on the labor law reforms. And then that Nedlac report will be shared with the committee and the chair of the portfolio committee once it is concluded and approved by the Nedlac governance structures. Then the second question related to the unhappiness by social partners in relation to the UI and compensation fund configuration. And Chairperson, the key issue of dissatisfaction was the limited progress in addressing the challenges on the timeous payment of workers in relation to the CCMA TERS, as well as some of the outstanding payments on COVID TERS. And all of these have been linked really to what was proposed for the modernization of the UI such that the systems are proper and the claims can be paid quite fast. So there were delays in the payments, and the social partners were not happy with the presentations that were made by the UI in relation to the proposals to fix those challenges. So we then escalated the challenge or the concerns to the acting DG, and of which, following the meeting that was held by Nedlac and the acting DG and the team, was that there was an agreement that the department with the UI will report at Nedlac regularly in relation to the progress on the unbundling, as well as the proposals on the amendment of the UI Act, and also that they are looking at having special inspectors who will focus on the UIF and COIDA. So the department will then come back to Nedlac and report on those. But really what was also of key concern from social partners was that the cost that is estimated for fixing the UI is, particularly this one is for labor, is very high. So couldn't be there any measures that will not be as high, but will be equally effective to address those challenges, and that the social partners should be informed in terms of the progress on these issues. So hence, Chair, the report that now, following the intervention or the escalation through the acting DG, that issue is there are mechanisms that have been agreed to address those issues, including that regular reporting. Chair, thank you very much.
Chair, I will come in. It's Amelia Naidoo from Productivity SA. I'm going to be addressing two of the members' questions. Honorable Konto raised about just getting clarity on the job preservation side of it. So for Q1, we did not have a signed agreement. Therefore, there was a zero achievement because we could not do work without the UIF signed agreement. In Q2, so the agreement was signed end of July, then we achieved 346, even though the target was 1,700. Of course, this is a factor that is, the contribution of this is due to the fact that we start and stop. So to support the enterprises, of course, in a financial decline or in a distressed state. So there's some of them that we may have engaged with in previous times, but then they pull out of the program when we do suspend the program for a period of time as well. That's just the clarity on the numbers. So it wasn't that the jobs reduced, it's just that the targets could not be achieved. Then Honorable Nontsele, he actually asked about the underlying problems, related to these funding agreements. Of course, the UIF has given us an indication that there was due diligence that needed to be followed, the processes internally as well, that was for the signing of the agreement, and the same, when it came to the payment, which was delayed until last week. So there was a workshop also being held with the UIF and the partners yesterday, looking at the labor activation program as well as the SOPs involved. So there is a proactive approach that's being taken, but the UIF can also comment on it when they are doing their presentation. In relation to the structural issues, or when we say the structural mandate is not funded, the reality is the employment aspect, which productivity actually contributes to economic development, which actually creates jobs as well. And that structural mandate, when we indicate that it's that has an entity, there's no study that has been done on what the basics should be in place, and we're talking about the basic employment numbers should be within the organization. Previously, Productivity SA was the National Productivity Institute, and when the mandate changed and the functions changed, like that of job preservation as well as job creation, there was no study that was done. So it was just based on that previous structure. Yes, there was structural changes that happened over time, we do know that it relates to finances at the end of the day. And my proposal already, to the acting DG, as well as I know the board has brought it up to the minister now going forward, that if we do get additional support for 2 to 3 years, we have enough work and we don't need any additional work to do because we would be financially sustainable, but we need to have the core functions of the organization actually funded. But also a study should be done on what that core functions should entail and, the employment aspect of the organization. So we are saying that, we are the lowest funded organization within the DAL funding. The DAL family themselves, we actually only get between 60 to 62 million a year. We're saying that if we do get an additional, 30% that would assist us with stabilizing the organization, you will see that the vacancy rate is very high. But for us to be able to fill those vacancies, to deliver on the services, we also need to be able to bear that cost initially. So we need to be able to stabilize over a 2 to 3 year period, and then we can actually deliver also on all the contracts that we have, as well as the revenue generation strategy that we have in play. But if I do place all the positions, it does take me, time to be able to stabilize, for us to be able to revenue generate and deliver, obviously, on the APP as well as the mandate ultimately. So that's how, of course, that is the view that I have as the acting CEO, and from the research that I've also done over the last 5 years, where we did come out with surpluses, but then were we able to achieve APP at the same time? It is a structural issue at the end of the day. When Productivity SA became Productivity SA, an entity of Department of Employment and Labour, no study was actually done to conclude exactly what the cost should be. The last question relates to the PRMA, and just to give you an indication, the current employees, and that includes myself, does not benefit from any retirement, or contribution towards medical aid in retirement. It's the previous, and that's why we call it the post-retirement funds themselves. So it's previous employees. This is before this changes also happened in relation to Productivity SA. So it's 23 employees from years ago. There is a case that's underway. It's actually a high court case that it's a legal matter officially, because we did stop paying at one point, because remember, these are contracts that are no longer in existence, but the court ordered us to continue paying this medical aid, which is 100% contribution, because those were the contracts that were in place in previous years. So no employee currently employed by Productivity SA would benefit from it in any way. In actual fact, there is no contract thereafter, but there are a number of cases underway. But the current big case that relates to the 23 employees, the High Court has reserved judgment. We are waiting for the outcome, and the judgment will be communicated, and then we will obviously give feedback to DEL and the relevant structures as well. So this we cannot budget, or we have to be able to budget in our additional revenue. So it doesn't come out of, we're not allowed to touch it, obviously, as part of the funding allocations. But this means that we have to, and the current employees have to actually generate 5 million rand extra so that we can cover this cost. So it is a cost implication on us, or an expense at the end of the day, but it's also that we did have past employees, and we are, according to their contracts, we should be paying for those. But at the end of the day, the new contracts do not include that. So I'm hoping I've explained, but if any requirement or any additional information is required, I can provide it outside of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I thought maybe just to embellish 1 or 2 points. One is that the issue of the CCMA funding is something that, as the director indicated, that we're engaged with. But perhaps what I want to mention is the fact that, National Treasury, upon us having engagements with them, they've made it absolutely clear that that they're not necessarily going to be in a position to release any further funds to the CCMA, which then makes it very important that our engagements with the CCMA, must come to fruition very soon, in as far as exploring other alternative forms of generating income. So we're looking forward to those proposals from the CCMA, and we can assure them of our support. On the issue of Productivity SA, and the delays that occurred there, Chair. I just want to assure the House that those issues where there's nothing of principle there, those were just purely administrative issues, and we shall ensure going forward that there is no repeat of such delays so that vulnerable workers out there are not prejudiced. Thank you very much, Chair, and that's it from my side.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just request the DG to try to respond on the issue of acting capacities and the process that administratively is being followed to ensure that we deal with those issues before I come in on the DG position?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Chair, this is an issue that we've been seized with. We found that there was a state of moratorium in the department that was declared that we couldn't fill vacancies. Safe to say that, Chair, we've addressed that issue. We've identified where the snags are at. We've identified 288 critical vacancies that we are now starting a process of filling them. And that particular process where it is now, it is at the point of being submitted to National Treasury and to DPSA for concurrence, such that we are starting a process of filling those vacancies. One thing for sure that is at risk here, Chair, is that we're going to have to move mountains to ensure that we fill those vacancies within this specific financial year, so that we do not necessarily run the risk of those vacancies being nullified going forward. And we'll do our best to ensure that we protect the base that we have. So that's the process then going forward. And in terms of timelines, we are, hoping that from the back end of this month or early next month, we'll be advertising the positions. Thank you very much. Thanks, Minister.
Chairperson, I want to take this opportunity to welcome and appreciate comments and feedback that is positive, but request that we allow the Deputy Minister, then I'll come last as I requested, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Greetings to the chairperson of the committee, the members, the honorable members of the portfolio committee, the team led by the acting DG from the department and all the entities. Chairperson, we appreciate the opportunity. I want to start by saying what the presentation or the overview by the minister, what she presented earlier on when we started the meeting, covered particularly what is contained also in the presentation, but she was speaking in terms of the political overview, politicizing the content of what is being presented, but also touching on some of the issues that are outside the presentations. When it comes to the political overview, because I heard that one member raised an issue that there were issues that the minister was supposed to cover. When it comes to the political overview, the challenge is that, you can present it throughout the day because there are many issues that you can deal with when it comes to the political overview. But you have to select some of the key issues that we believe the members will need to hear. And that's why the minister touched on quite a number of issues that, as the ministry, we felt they must be presented to the members. It will be very difficult to cover the entire political, issues that are at play in the country regarding issues of labor. On mines, obviously, there is a department that is responsible for what is happening on mines, and we deal with that department where it's necessary, but there is a department responsible that deals with the mines in particular. And on the unions that don't want to be addressed by other ministers, and the minister was silent about them because they are registered with us. I think as the department and the committee will also appreciate the employee-employer relations and the space and the dynamics that are in that space and the labor laws that protect the workers and the choices that they can make. There's nothing wrong in that. It's a politics within the labor space. Workers they would want to be addressed by a certain person, won't want to be addressed by a certain. It's not like they're infringing on anybody's rights, but it's a space that there is politics in it, and the dynamics in that space. I think as politicians as well and as public servants will appreciate that space, that there will be dynamics. And the department can't do anything about that. It's not like because they are registered with us, those unions, and then we've got a responsibility to make sure that they listen to a particular minister. It's not within.
You're muted, Tim.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I think that was a situation where SATU refused to be addressed by the Minister of Education. It's a space and the dynamics within the labor movement and the employer-employee relations, which from time to time we must appreciate that it exists. And on the inspectors, Chair, who are unable to access different places and get threatened, it's part of the journey that our inspectors go through, and it has been going on in this country for too long. It's one of the things that one day we'll need to engage on as the society in this country, that when we want to enforce the laws of this country, and you've got people who don't want to accept that the department or government as an authority to enforce laws, to do inspection and enforcement, then you must know that we're a country with challenges. By the way, in this country, the level of compliance is very, very high, Chairperson. It's one country where compliance is challenged quite a lot. That's why the minister and the acting DG will forever be talking about increasing the number of inspectors, because the more we have inspectors, the more we will be able to inspect and enforce. So it's one issue that as the committee and as the department, but as the society, we need to engage on. But it's part of the journey that we're experiencing every day. Our inspectors get to be threatened. They get to be, to have a challenge in accessing some of the places they need to get into. But we are working on it. They are working every day hard to make sure that they do their work. The work is being done, but there is a lot of non-compliance, and there is a need for more inspectors, and the department is working on that in making sure that the work that we need to do is done every day. Other than that, I think the department and the officials have covered quite a number of issues presented very well in the morning at the political overview. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, DM. Just as a writer on the issues raised by Honorable Konto, firstly, I want to welcome the critique in terms of my presentation. It is an on-site performance appraisal that I appreciate, that I need to improve in terms of what I bring to the portfolio committee. It's my first appearance here to present the quarterly reports. I will do better next time. But on the issue that affects other ministries, I would request that the portfolio committee has a way of maybe referring some questions to the relevant people when it comes to those issues. Examples were made here of the illegal miners and all those issues. And I think the DM has responded well to say, unfortunately, that particular issue, it has got nothing to do with labor laws and also workers, because I believe those people are trying to do illegal mining as means of living, not necessarily that there's an employer-employee relation that is in that space. But we will encourage through you, Chairperson, that all the topical issues that are outside us, the members, have a way of getting to get the information there. And I also note the issue of the questions, weekly questions to myself. If then I fail to respond to questions that are referred to me by honorable members from time to time. I want to assure this committee that I've got an open door policy, and even my number is available with you, Honorable Chairperson. You can give it to the members of the Portfolio Committee, because I see Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labor as one of our important stakeholders and partners. So we don't need to wait for a meeting of this nature, where unfortunately, majority of times we are challenged with time. We can't say everything, so that if there are questions that I've failed to respond to, honorable members interact with me directly so that I can quickly attend to those issues. It is not my motto to hide information or not to respond when the members who have also a responsibility to respond to their constituencies and communities want some answers, and I'm not found to be cooperating. It can't be a deliberate attempt from my side. Having said that, Chairperson, I think almost everything was covered, but will guide us, except for the issue of the acting DG. The acting DG, we've got a DG that is on contractual engagement, who was engaged by the former minister, and her term ends it ends in February. Then it is only then when we'll be able then to declare vacancy here and appoint a permanent DG if there's something like that. But I want to also say we are committed, regardless of the challenges. In our strategic planning sessions, we had to be exposed to the understanding of the officials on the moratorium, which we corrected them in terms of our own understanding, to say you can still appoint on critical vacancies, in particular where there is budget, of course, in consultation with National Treasury. Hence, then the ADG is responding that there is some movement that is being started to start to at least, even if it at a minimal basis, to fill those vacancies. Otherwise, we welcome the positive comments. We welcome also those questions that are giving us another homework to go back to where we are doing work and think deeply on how best we can deal with issues that affect our communities. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. With those questions and responses, I think we can get to the conclusion of these three presentations, as we would be taking the other presentations. Safe to say that we need to conclude properly, in that I'm sure with all questions asked, there's a common point that there's appreciation of the progress made in terms of performance by the different entities in the first and second quarter as presented to us. That this would have been covered both in terms of the minister's overall overview of all the entities that are coming before us, but also confirmed by the presentations from the entities themselves. Of course, we're also making an observation that in some of these entities would need to really keep an eye with regard to financial sustainability, given that there may be no funds coming through from National Treasury as reported. But for example, the Productivity South Africa, the red flags that are coming out of the structural issues, as well as the issues that relates to medical costs for the post-retirement, whilst we observe that the matters of medical costs are still also subjects of courts where decisions would have to be made. But this does not stop the department working with the entity to look at best financial model to ensure that the entity is sustainable. So would need to get such feedback as we get into the future. The same with the CCMA, that with the National Treasury not committing to future funding, the proposals that get made, I think we need to concretize that the department and the entity would at least present us with a comprehensive report on the options that are available. And some of them were presented in our first workshop, the entities, where they also looked at issues of property and how some funds could be released from that end if we were to look at partnership agreements using also the district development model. So it's something that we may need to get now proper report so that these ideas don't fall through the cracks out of presentations or responses at a particular time, but now get to be documented to really give the effect we need. And I'm sure the point raised by honorable members with regard to funding agreements between Productive South Africa and the UIF, that they being entities of the same department, we shouldn't be having that problem at all. So whether it's a planning issue, I know it's called administrative, but it shouldn't be, because then the outcomes may be something else, that if you needed to save jobs in that period and you couldn't do, it will no longer be an administrative issue, but it increases political problems that we have. That on one hand, we have to ensure there's employment. On the other, even when we had an opportunity to save those out of administrative hiccups, were unable to do so. So that helps then in the planning for the next financial year, that we do not get to such problems. Because what it can do, which is something we don't talk to the other side, is that if you are releasing that money in Q4 when you couldn't do anything Q1 up to Q3, it may be just throwing the money, but not really to resolve the problem that we needed to resolve, because there will be nothing to do at the time except to comply that the money was transferred. So I think we should understand these implications going forward, so that our planning does speak to that. And I think with those points on the two entities, I think it's important to note that as our conclusion. And maybe the last point would be on the Nedlac. I think the only thing there is to really appreciate the work that's being done there. But more importantly, it's how also the department needs to support Nedlac in managing the discussions that are taking place, especially at this critical point where there may be arguments that are already there, and that to protect those going forward is going to be very important in that regard, including transition and leadership. That we must manage that so that we don't have a collapse in the process. Of course, from the committee side, we always look forward that those that are legislative related and need to come before the committee, that the sooner that they are brought in before the committee, the better, as the intention is really to have legislation passed within the term and see through its implementation within the term, so that it's then understood by those that pass the legislation whether that legislation is really helping to resolve the challenges it seeks to address. Those who come after are able to at least build from that. Otherwise, like I said, that will conclude on the three presentations. Would then, honorable members, given the apologies that we have received, I want to suggest that we do not really take a break, but you have your working lunch virtually. So in that score, we proceed to take the two last presentations, which will still be 20 minutes maximum each, and then take up a discussion after that. I will continue to assess the number of members on the platform before we get to approval of minutes. But we do have the required numbers to still proceed and get the last two presentations. Honorable Minister and your team, I have no intentions of holding others hostage if they are to go and do implementation of some of the programs that need to be done as others are making the presentation. Neither do I have a problem if they stay online, but you will know better who would have indicated yourselves in terms of getting space to do one or two things in relation to their work. I'm sure for those that have presented already, so it's just that indication so that there's order in the way we proceed. With that having been said, I will then I take it that DG, your team is ready to make the presentation. The compensation fund and the UIF is the last ones. 20 minutes.
Chair, thank you very much. No, yes, the two teams are ready, and again, we won't waste time. We will jump straight into the presentations. Let's take the compensation fund. Commissioner Fazana Fakir, over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, Minister, Deputy Ministers, Acting DG, and colleagues. I will do the presentation. If Ma'am Matapelo can please just screen the presentation, please, for me, since I don't have hosting rights. I'm just waiting on her to please screen the presentation, and I am strict on your 20 minutes, Chairperson. Or else, I don't know why she's not sharing it. Yeah, I cannot share, Chairperson, unfortunately. I haven't been given hosting rights.
Through you, Chair.
Shows
Through you,
that
Chair. I've just made her co-host.
Oh, okay, but it's Fazana Fakir who's the co-host because I'm on two devices here. So you haven't given me co-host on the other one.
Which one? On which one, ma'am?
Fazana Fakir. Yeah, please.
Okay. Oh, I see that one. All right.
Yeah, please. You need to make me co-host on that because unfortunately I'm out. My connection's a bit bad. I'm on a strategic risk session. Okay.
I've done it, Chair.
Okay, I'm seeing that. Okay, I'm going to go to the presentation. Okay. I've started sharing and then I see it's there. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. So it is 12:45 and then I should be finishing by 13:05. So I'm going to jump straight into the progress of Q1. I'm not going to go into the detail of Q1 because our performance is cumulative. And in terms of our performance, because it's cumulative, I'll speak into the detail of it in Q2, taking into consideration the time constraints. Sorry, let me just do this as view slideshow. Apologies for that. Yeah, because I was told that I would not be, but okay. Okay, so I'm trying to make that a slideshow. So I've gone to the next slide, which, apologies, I think there's a delay from my side here. Apologies for that. Maybe I should just go back to you. Okay, so in terms of the slide, I will go to slide 6, which is the Q1 performance. The Q1 performance, as you can see, we have 21 annual planned indicators. Out of that 21, 6 are quarterly indicators. We did achieve the 6 quarterly indicators, as the minister pointed out, and thank you. It is from the guidance of the minister and the acting DG that it is the first time the fund has achieved 100% in its quarter one. In terms of displaying that significant improvement, I will then go to slide 12. And on slide 12, you will see that 22, 23, if we look at the last 3 years of analysis, we had a 75% achievement. And from the 75%, we then had a growth onto of 100% for 24, 25. On slide 13, you will see our highest achievements of indicators. And as you can see, which is very prevalent, from a 90% of claims received, which the minister did highlight, we now achieve 94% against that target of 90. For approved benefits paid within 10 working days, against a target of 95, we achieved 99, and against a target of 95% for pre-authorizations, we achieved 98%, and for 85% of medical invoices finalized within 25 working days, we achieved 91, and for 95% of requests for assistive devices, we achieved 98. So now, is there really an improvement? And that is what we would like to ask ourselves. And I do bear in mind that, yes, we do need to ensure that service delivery is improved upon. And what we can see is that if you look at this slide 14, what you will see in the 90% of claims received and adjudicated from 22, 23, we've progressed from 89% to now a 94% achievement. For approved benefits that were paid within 10 working days in 22, 23, we achieved 66%, and that has gone to 99%. And in terms of the pre-authorization for quarter one, where we achieved 98, it did stay steady at 98 there. And for accepted medical invoices that are finalized within 25 working days, we then had 85% achievement. We regressed to 68%, but we filled up our socks and now achieved 91% there. And for the assistive devices, we stayed steady at 97 and 98%. So, Chairperson, in terms of the financials, I'm not going to touch in detail on this financials because I'll give you the detail for quarter two. But I think what you can see that is stable in terms of our financials that you'll also see in quarter two. We are achieving more in terms of our revenue than what we budgeted. So especially in the revenue from assessments, we did budget 11.3 billion, but we did have an over collection of 1 billion there. And in our fair value adjustments, which the minister also rightfully and correctly pointed out, that fair value adjustments on our investments, that increase in value there of around an extra 1.1 billion. So we did, from an estimate of 24 billion, we already achieved 19 billion in quarter one. Our expenditure in quarter one, if I go to the next slide, which is slide 17, if you look at our expenditure for quarter one, you're expecting around 25% expenditure for programs. However, I will give the detail in QPR2 on the expenditure. You can see that the only one who's on par is maybe program 2 with maybe 19%. You see an over expenditure here on program 4, but program 4, the 47% for quarter one doesn't really allay fears to us in the compensation fund because we provide bursaries to around 4,000 students in tertiary education. And what we find is because our financial year starts in March and we find and enroll those students, payments are already due to those universities. And so it actually shows efficient service delivery in that those payments are being made. And that does constitute majority of that 454 million rand budget, which is the bursaries that we give to students in tertiary institutions. So, Chairperson, since I have about 15 minutes left, let me then touch on maybe in quarter one, maybe I just want to quickly show you the provincial performance so that you can see that we do follow up with provinces because you'll see an improvement in performance in the underperforming provinces in QPR1. So what you will find in QPR1 is that the Eastern Cape is the one that did not achieve the 90% of claims received. And however, and obviously there's one thing called not assigned, which is just claims that could not be assigned to a province because we didn't actually know which province the claim belonged to. And that's the ones that we attend to at head office just to ensure service delivery. However, it didn't affect the overall achievement, right? Because we achieved 94%. Then in slide 20, what we do find in medical invoices, we found Western Cape lacking there. However, we did get an overall achievement of 91% against a target of 85. And in slide 21, we see Northern Cape due to their small number of requests for authorizations, but they only achieved 1, and they then achieved 25% there. There were some team dynamics and new resources that had come on board, which had impacted the performance that you then clearly see again in slide 22, which is the pre-authorizations for assistive devices. And what we found there is Limpopo was slacking at 85% and Northern Cape then at 80% there. So let me go on to quarter 2. So in quarter 2, I'm going to take about more time here and speak in detail. So just to emphasize that our performance is cumulative. However, what we did find also in quarter 2, and we thank the minister for that compliment, that we have, improved in our performance. However, we do note that, we must link it to efficient service delivery, and this is a sign of that. What we have found is that due to our improvements in our SOPs and focusing on our operations, we did again achieve the 100%. And from the 6 quarterly indicators, you can see quarterly 6 of them were achieved. So I'm going to go into a bit of detail on those 6 quarterly indicators. So number 1, as you know, we have mutuals, which is called the Rand Mutual Authority, and FEM, which is related to construction. We need to monitor their performance since they get a license from the compensation fund. And what we did there is we did do the monitoring. So therefore we achieved that. The next indicators, which is the percentage of claims. Now, I do understand in quarter 1, we had an achievement of 94%. However, in quarter 2, although we did achieve, it did decrease to 91%. But that is also related to an increased number of claims that we've seen in the second quarter. So out of the 54,515 claims that the compensation fund received, we adjudicated 49,500 within the 25 days. And then to relate that to service delivery, which I know the members are quite adamant about, is that you show 100% performance, but does it correlate to your actual payment of benefits to injured workers, to clients, etc. And what we have in stakeholders, what I can vouch for is for the percentage of approved benefits that were paid within 10 working days, which is our benefits to injured workers, payments to MSPs, medical service providers. Sorry, that is what MSP stands for. We did achieve 99.8%. And what you do see is that a total amount of almost 2.9 billion Rand of accumulated benefits was paid within 10 working days, which represents 670,425 benefits that are then paid out of a total of 671,260 within 10 working days. Then in terms of program 3, our percentage of requests for pre-authorization, as I pointed out before, you see a steady, 98%, 100%. So we did receive 315 requests and 310 were finalized within 10 working days. Now, if you look at 3.2, which is under program 3, which is another big benefit adjudication for us, which is the invoices that we receive, medical invoices that must be finalized within 25 working days of receipt. 95% was the target, and that is out of a total of 463,571 were actually finalized within 25 working days out of the actual total population of 490,000. In slide 33, which is the assistive devices, which is one of the very important service delivery. These are injured workers that have disabilities. They require either, prosthetics for their amputated limbs, spinal injuries that require wheelchairs. We did achieve 99%. And of the 1,019 requests that we received, 1,007 were finalized within 15 working days. So if we look at slide 34, what do we see in terms of the fund's performance in Q2? Now in 22-23, we achieved 75%. 23-24, we regressed very badly to 38%. But in 24-25, we have achieved 100%, which does show a much improvement in terms of our operations. In slide 35, I won't touch on that. I think it's similar to what I've talked about. But slide 36, in terms of comparisons, I think, again, Chairperson, I won't go into the detail, but rather just say you can see that there is a substantial improvement, in 24-25. And we once again thank the Minister and the Acting DG for their guidance and support in achieving these indicators. I'm going to now touch on the financial performance, and I do know that I have 8 minutes left, but I'm going to touch on this now in more detail. So from our revenue from assessments, Chairperson, this is slide 38, we do accrual accounting. So we do raise invoices, and we did budget that in terms of our assessments for employers, we would have 11.2 billion by Q2. However, in our 30th September actuals, we are on 12.6 billion, and we have over recovery of 1.3 billion, which represents 112% achievement. Then I'm going to highlight also the other revenues are on par in terms of where we are, in that we're in the middle of the year. So you're expecting, at least 50 or above percentage in terms of your actual budget. Like, what have you achieved? So we seem to be on par, but just to highlight that our interest on our bank account, we did get 124 million over recovery there, which is 197% of our actual budget of 129 million. And if you look at our total revenue, Chairperson, our estimates were around 24.5 billion, but our actuals are sitting at 29 billion, as the Minister did state in her intro. And we have an over collection of maybe 4.5 billion, which means that we're looking good financially at 120% achievement on our revenue. On the expenditure in the programs, you do see quite a substantial improvement, right? Because if you remember, in Q1, program 2 was sitting at 18, program 3 was sitting at 19. So program 1 looks still sitting at 9%, but I will give you the reason in the following slides. Program 2 at 43, medical benefits, you wouldn't be too happy about at 38%. You'd want to have 50% payment. And orthotics, again, representing a high expenditure there, but I did say it is about the bursaries. So let me just quickly then talk to what that context, and give you some context in terms of the commentary on the revenue performance. So if you looked at our revenue, as I've stated, we did have an over collection of maybe 1.3 billion. The reason for that is we are enforcing compliance, and we conducted 900 payroll audits. So we are getting, identifying the under declarations, which is increasing the revenue. And what we also have done, there was a notable increase in tariffs for the farming and transport sectors because of the high risk of injuries, because our assessments are a risk-based model. Then if you look at our interest on our earned bank account, it was due to the 5.5 billion that was held in the EBSA call account for the 6 months period prior to September, which earned interest at an average rate of 8%. But we did transfer that excess cash of 4.5 billion to PIC so it can be invested in our portfolios. And from our investment income also of 4.10 billion, we generated, the 3.257 billion that was generated from government bonds, then carried a value of 70 32 billion and a fixed deposit balance of 11 billion, which then generated our 547 million in interest. And then just again on the fair value adjustments, it was an unrealized fair value income. And when we, fair value adjustments are done annually, so we look at the value of our investments, and that also contributed then 10.3 billion there. In terms of our expenditure performance, if you look at program 1, why the 9% expenditure? Because there was a delay in finalization of procurement items in the area of capacity building for our financial management and our internal audit. However, we have prioritized our procurement plan, and Chairperson, we are going to make sure that we complete those procurements. But also we've started doing something quite, because like the minister quite rightfully pointed out, we don't want to hide information. We don't want to hide anything. We do have a big debt liability. And so we are now doing unprocessed bad debts provision of 5 billion, which effected at the end of the year. And so that also, impacted our year-end adjustments. In terms of program 3, which is the spending of 38%, Minister did rightfully point out that was actually due to some mapping errors with medical service providers. They're not being, registered with the relevant body, which is a Board of Healthcare Funders, and that also impacted payment. And also we have for fraud, we have an account verification system. So we have to align the account that the MSP, the medical service provider, has given us. And we then ask the bank to check for us along with the account verification system of whether something is, whether the accounts align. So for example, for Zana, this is her ID number. Does that account actually exist? And is it rightfully paid? Just quickly, since I have 2 minutes left, in terms of our provincial breakdown, you will see improvements in terms of the 90% of claims, only Western Cape lagging there behind. But that is due to the high number of claims that are actually receiving and are actually now even overtaking Gauteng. We do recognize that might be from the Western Cape provincial governments submitting their claims efficiently, and that is a bit of an overload on the Western Cape resources. On the medical invoices, Western Cape was lagging Q1. They've improved due to their performance improvement plan to now 91%. And Northern Cape also from the 25% now sitting at 88%. And what we find also is that Northern Cape in assistive devices also were lagging. They haven't achieved in assistive devices, but they improved to 92%. And Chairperson, I think they're finished on time. So thank you. And that is the presentation from the compensation fund. Thank you.
You have?
Did you say UIF?
Yeah, UIF, you next.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and everybody. If you could beam for me, literally, Chair, as you have always said, the presentation is read. We must go for the salient features. I'd really ask the slide driver to go to slide number 4 because it puts it all in a dashboard and our message can be completed even with just looking at that one slide. The one slide, Chair, if taking it as read, there seems to be a delay on my side. In the comparatives of Q1 and Q2 in last financial year and Q1 and Q2 in this current financial year, the committee will notice that there's a time where we were hitting at our 70s and our 84s. Presently, Q1 we're at 59%, and for Q2 we have a slight move up at 62%. But Chair, to me, the message that must be gleaned from that is that an ability to work at the excellent level is there. All we need to employ is management tactics, leadership tactics, and everything else that we have been taught on how to achieve results. I'll make Tiger Sports, Chair, to just illustrate that. Listening to all the presentations so far done, I conclude that once there is standardization of targets as a benchmark and a best practice, the number of days within which they must be achieved, in no time the minister shall take us to the levels that are required. I'm using that, and then nothing is showing on my screen, Chair. I think that maybe there's a problem.
Yes,
with
I think there's a bit of a problem. You can't see. We thought
Yeah.
that we were just starting in order to allow the
Yeah,
flight.
let me hold back a bit, Chair.
Just
It
to
was
also
a-
help those
Yeah.
that are doing the deliberations.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks, Chair. Another is coming. Okay, go to slide. It looks like our slides are not going to reconcile. Can you go to slide 6? Because in my printed, it does there. Just keep it there. Thank you very much. Chair, I was speaking on this point to say that when there's a comparison of Q1 and Q2 in the past financial year and where we are in the present financial year, I do make the conclusion from the entrustmentship I'm given as an acting commissioner that it cannot be said that there is no ability on our staff and ourselves to achieve what the committee, the minister, the DG is directing us to do, and indeed what the citizens of South Africa want. Because it cannot be that in Q1 of 2023-2024, we would have levels where you're at 80% and 72 overall, and that must demonstrate an inability. And in Q1 2024-2025, you are less those levels in every respect. And if I were then to make a comparison just by the Tiger Sports to demonstrate the point that it is within our hands, it is within our ability to reach at the levels that we should reach at. If you can just move to slide, just as a comparison, Chair, if you can just move at slide 26, I just want to illustrate a point. Slide 26. Now, then can you move on? I think our slides are not reconciling. Okay, go back to slide 13. I think our slides are, that is Q1, not Q2, please, sorry. Q1, just let's start with Q1. You can leave it at this, thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson, in the area not achieved here, the middle one, we received 509,000 applications for benefits. And we have a target of achieving 95% of those within 5 days. Now, if the standardization I was talking about would not push it to, we have our own self-scored goal that we want to do the volumes, all of them, in 5 days. And if you were to standardize to the 25 days, 15 days, and so on, the picture could change. But even when you leave it like this, Chair, and the point I'm portraying is that the ability to do it is there. We must just exercise management approach. If you can keep in mind this slide 13 at that 509,000 received, and go to slide 33 in Q2, then I'll have illustrated the point. Can you drive to slide 33 in Q2? I just want to talk to this item. Thank you very much. Honorable Chair and the members, Minister, DG, if you see that in the slide we're coming from Q1 on this same benefit, 5 days, 95%, there we had 709 as this slide shows. In this one, we had 1,150,000. Same resources that we use, same 5 days. In this 1.449 that we received, we did double the 509 that we achieved in 5 days in Q1. Then it anchors the point I'm making that all that we need to do is to channel our energies properly and set the standards according to the norms, and then encourage our people to just do it. Because if we can do double the number, yes, why is that number 500,000 more than you did last time? It's still a failure. And it's a fail that is just up by 7% to 79% from the 72 in 500,000. There's a mismatch there. But the point I'm making is that ability to turn the situation around is there. Like just as an example in the above one, Chair, where we have achieved 95% in one working day, anything and everything received one working day, and we received 21,000 in one working day. Our people did it. And they did it even at 100%. The target was 95. But if you employ the tactics of management, where you say, let's use a rural boy heading a sheep or cattle, you look for all the cattle, not one of them. Therefore, if you spend your energies over exceeding the 97, and then you underachieve the other two, because you didn't then rechannel your resources to the areas of needs. But we've got best practice in the department, besides your ILIMA, your CIMA, and so on, even in our inspection department, where if in one area of our inspection, as the committee was exposed to those activities, we see that we're slightly behind in this province as against the other provinces. What our leadership has made us to do is to do what we call blitz inspections, where we pool our other resources in the areas where we've exceeded the expectation and come to the area that is weaker and push it to the level that is required. And that's all that I'm saying, that all we need to do here, the ability to do it is well within us. We just must exercise the systems, processes, leadership approaches, management techniques, and this thing should not be a problem. Last two, Chair, and will benefit from the wisdom of the committee. That's why I'm just giving the tiger spots. If you were to go to slide 26, just on the invoices, I want to compare that can you just move on? Move on again. All right, keep it there. In the area of invoices, in the last bullet, the Honorable Chairperson and the members, we must, like every other one, this one is a legal requirement in the Public Finance Management Act. Every person you're dealing with who rendered services for you, you must pay them within 30 days. And it's quite critical for us because we know the consequences. Other businesses have closed, resulting in jobs lost because the government did not pay. In Q1, we missed this target by one invoice. 99% paid within the time. You missed one, it's a failure. Here, the total we paid, the 1,284, is 3 times more than the 390 we paid in Q1. But because of how we have set the system, it's a failure. But I'm not advocating this, Chair, to give us a massage. Why I'm raising this thing is that the minister, DG, and the ministry have just licensed us now. In the department, we've got an electronic management system where towards a paperless, faster efficiency, wherever you are, you can interact with our work and do it. He just allowed us now, which we're thankful as UIF, but it's going to benefit the entire department, that within that electronic management system, there is a chapter on invoice management. He's just licensed us now. When we made the proposal, when he was looking, why are you failing on this thing? Then we said, here is an opportunity. Open for us this chapter within the system so that all invoices across the department, including the other entities, are there. What is nice with that system, Honorable Chair, is that it's got a warning system. You program it. If the invoice is with the hour, he's got 5 days, if that's what we shall have said, to deal with it. It then beams and flicks and turns to red to say you are behind schedule. And then the system can equally be programmed that if that hour was left on the job, it moves to the next step and then ultimately to the one who must approve. So you can program that, and these invoices are paid within those time. And then as a consequence, of course, you can go back and say, okay, who's left on the job? Okay, that hour, he had 5 days, never did no work on it. The next one, he had X number of days, no work on it. But I think the point I'm making, Chair, is that the committee must not be worried. In the next 2-3 months, if it shall have taken long, I don't see why it should take that long, because it's really opening a chapter within a system that is already running. To just include the invoice, all the invoices are deposited there. It's got a countdown, and then we should be over this point. All I'm trying to convey, Honorable Chair and members, is this is within our space. We should be able, just in exercise of leadership, everything else we should be able. Let me close with one, which the minister immediately picked. If you were to see in our lab space, in a slide 24 of our financials in Q2, or where the presentation is on the financials, there it's an issue exactly there. Thank you very much. It's an issue, Chair, of the minister spotted this. You'll see there where we say in poverty alleviation schemes, we had an under expenditure of 96%. And the minister, just in no time she came, she said, how do you promise South Africans and the whole world that you shall, from a base of not even having been able to achieve 100 placements in jobs and the like, all of a sudden promise 75%. It's a clear case of setting yourself for failure. And indeed it demonstrated, because we could not achieve that 96%. That one was a clear poverty on our side in planning, cutting above our belt. But those items, luckily our leadership, both administratively and politically, have then, said, look, relax. The SMART principles are still methods of planning, that whatever you want to do, it must be simple, it must be realistic, it must be achievable within a certain time bound. So if in history, you've never even achieved in 12 months, 2,000, how do you then multiply that by millions of percent, thousands of percentages? So I just wanted to highlight that as much as, yes, we're saying we can achieve some of the things, but in some respects, it pushes us to wake up and do that which is within our power. And this picture should be totally different. On finances, Chair, just in the summary there, the committee will be happy in the first bullet there that our expenditure is underspent by 3.85%. That is good, because then what we said we shall do with money, if we miss it by 3.85%, is within the range. And that was an increase of 11.9%, which means we didn't deprive those that should have got a financial benefit from us. And in the last area, Chair, without overemphasizing the point, our leadership is said to us, and we have woken up to that fact, that you must create a self-dependence. You are given an opportunity to fill positions, and our vacancy rate is at an under 5%, so that you don't depend on outside help. Hence, then, even less reliance on consulting fees has made our expenditure to come a little bit down, because we said we're not existing to just dish out money. We must dish it out when the resources we exist to do the work with have gone to the highest level. Then you patch up, than to substitute. You have those that you have employed sitting back, and then you put every other person to come as a service provider, and then you spend all the money. Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, I think from our side, that's our presentation. But the Honorable Chair and the committee members, we shall benefit from your insights. All I think the message we're passing is, if we have hit at the levels of 84 and so on, it tells we've got the ability. We just must put the approaches, put the management technique, put the everything else, and then give our people what is due to them. And it is within our reach. Can I stop at that, Honorable Chair? And I'm sure other things will explain more in questions. I've got the Director on Monitoring and Evaluation with me. If the committee would allow, should it be necessary, they can give insights in the answers. I've got also the CFO, but I just gave a high level in the finances. But any toe-to-toe, she's an expert in the space. She will see us through. Can I stop at this, Honorable Chair? Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Compensation Fund and the UIF for the presentations. I will now, honorable members, without further waste of time, get to those members who would want to comment at this point. I see Honorable Mayeto, One. I'm inviting those members who would want to speak. We can proceed in the meantime, Honorable Maetso, as I identify the other member. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. And once again, let me welcome the presentation from the Compensation Fund and the UIF respectively, Chair. And safe to say, Chair, there are a number of aspects which one has identified in the presentation with regard to the quarter two of the report. And Chair, just to make a quick comment within my 5 minutes break, and also within my 5 minutes time allocated to me, a breakdown, Chair, of the revenue sources in the presentations. It reveals that the revenue from this assessment it amounted to 12.6 billion, surpassing the budget of 11.3 billion by 1.3 billion. Now, Chair, this increase can be obviously attributed to the fund's enforcement of compliance measures, including 900 payroll audits that collected over 6 million in under declaration. And Chair, additionally, the fund benefited from a favorable interest earned on bank accounts that totaling on the amount of 253.9 million. And I think, not even I think, this is due to an average cash balance of 5.3 billion held in high interest account. Now, fast forward, Chair, what we can say, the overall of the compensation fund's performance indicators for the second quarter of the financial year of 2024-2025 reflects a high level of achievement, obviously with programs, with 100% of the planned indicators met across various programs. For instance, the 98% of requests for pre-authorization for reopenings were finalized within stipulated time frame, demonstrating effective operational efficiency. Now, Chair, in conclusion on my comment, the compensation fund's financial performance for the period ended 30 September 2024 indicates a strong revenue generation capability, although there are areas of concern regarding expenditure management and operational delays in certain programs. The fund's abilities to exceed revenue targets while maintaining a high level of delivery, it is indeed commendable, but addressing the understanding and operational inefficiency will be crucial for future performances. Now, Chair, the questions emanating from this presentation is that what are the specific issues led to the slower spending in Program 3, which spends 38% of the 5.2 billion budget. And lastly, Chair, the administration only spends 9% of its budget, largely due to delays in procurement processes, as detailed in the presentation. I think, Chair, over and above, this is what I can raise within this 5 minutes allocated time. Thank you, Chair.
Your Honorable Maetso. I have not seen any other hand except now for Honorable Nantsele, where will be the last.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for again for the second round of the two entities. I think firstly, let's appreciate the presentation as made and also the noted progress in various areas.
I'm not sure if it's on my side, Honorable Nansel is speaking. So I'm not sure if it's me breaking.
Am I audible now?
Better?
I'm better now.
Yes, better.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, better.
Chair, can you hear me?
No problem. Yes, can you hear us? That's the thing. We can hear you, but can you hear us? Honorable Nzale? I think we've lost Honorable Nzale. Let's try again.
Chair, can I proceed?
You are back now. Can proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'm saying we have noted both the progress and some serious limitations that are still reflective of the report, particularly with regard to UIF on the administration side, and also some of those areas that impacts across both UIF and compensation fund. In the main, Chair, I think the question would relate to the extent to which strides have been made to respond to matters that have been raised as part of audit query. In particular, the issue of CETA, because some of the issues that impact negatively on the administration and the consequent failure to meet the set targets are ascribed in particular to a number of pages. If you go to page 18, 19, and page 14, that is of the UIF, you would find that there is a common problem that is covered there, which basically talks to the inadequacies or the system's failure that is brought about as a consequence of the inability of the IT system, that is CETA specifically, to make the entity respond. And the non-response is with regard to areas that are very much critical, that is in terms of service delivery. So I think it would be important for the department in responding to shed light as to the extent to which they've been able to address this particular critical area, which has led also to negative audit query or observation. The second one, Chair, relates to the hello, Chair. The second one, Chair, relates to the compensation fund, in particular with regard to its inability to spend, which in part has been covered by Honorable Maestro. But my question on the compensation fund would be more around its ability to respond to the outstanding matters, that is of cases that remained outstanding, that were not
We've lost you again. We've lost you again, Honorable Nansele. Please position and conclude.
Am I audible, Chair?
Now you are back. If you can proceed and conclude.
Okay. Let me conclude, Chair, because I'm summarizing at the same time that if, for instance, the department can as well just take us into consideration with regard to the issues of the turnaround time for benefits. This question cuts across also to UIF, which basically talks to the issue of the extent to which they've been able to quickly respond to these areas that have contributed to non-delivery in terms of the target set and the consequence of them not meeting targets. That is for both Q1 and Q2. That is with regard to UIF, and with regard to compensation fund, they've done very well, but the problem that is of delay, they remain reflective from some of the aspects of their report. Thank you, Chair. Let me summarize it that way. Otherwise, the network that is not good. I'm in a rural area, Chair. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Honorable Mansala. That's understandable. I will now, if there are no further hands, talk to the point now of getting responses from the ministry and team, of course, guided by yourself, Minister. Now we want to approach it from here.
Thank you, Chairperson. May I ask that the team that was presenting respond?
Honorable Minister, I can start if we don't follow the order where CF started, but I'm under guidance. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will just ours are just two or so. Is the SITA issue what the ministry, and maybe at the time we were here before this committee last time, we were asked to document this unbundling and the organizational architecture drive that we had through PwC, where there's a variety of items. Some would be leadership styles, shared values, systems, and so on. That process is ongoing, and I think for longer than that, I'll leave it to the DG and Deputy Minister, if they would want to go longer. But it's been identified that systems are some of our issues that are a factor. What has now been licensed is that we, like the CCMA, for example, must get out of the SITA, because the CCMA is operating on a platform outside the SITA. Hence, their systems are equal to the task, and they can process as fast as they do. So we've been given that license too. But of course, there are legalities to just navigate, but the end result is to get off that. Then it should take us outside the excuse of ICT systems. In the meanwhile, between now and the time we shall be truly out of the SITA, we have got service providers. One of them is in the space of the service benefits. DG led a session where
if that is
we
okay,
had a session with that service
we break for
provider. We've
45
given
minutes,
them an assignment. You've just
and
been appointed.
25 past
Before
now.
you do anything,
What is
do a
45 minutes?
diagnosis.
My arithmetic fails
What are
me.
you
I think we
discovering?
get back here 10 past.
So that against what we
At
know,
10
we
past
reconcile
2.
notes.
If we
And
can
then when you
adjourn
put
until 10 past 2,
interventions
then
to
we
turn
will
the
start with
situation
you, Advocate
around,
Motibi.
we're on the
That's
same
one.
page.
Thank you.
And part of what they
Advocate
discovered
Patoi,
is
and your
that
team,
part of
so
the reason
far,
why the system
and
is
generally
even
be
slower
as well
than
for the answers
whatever
that
speed was given
you've
by the
provided,
SITA
and to the members
is that it was
for your
programmed
patience
in a
and the
manner
clarity
that
of
makes
your
it to be
questions. Thank you.
busy with non-value add things. So it takes too long because it's busy with things that are unnecessary in the transaction in question.
Downstairs.
And the resolution given was weed those things out so that then the pace can move up. The point being that at least between now and the time we are out into the SITA, even the other slowness, which is our own creation, so to speak, will be weeded out, and then it should pace us up a little bit. Last one, Honorable Chair, is on the turnaround times. Hence, I was saying, once we standardize based on the best practice that is developed across the other entities within the department, some of these things should be slightly different than they are. Because take the example, our major noise, honorable members, tends to come, if we say, for example, 95%, it tends to be the 5% that somewhat becomes less of a focus, because each claim is counted from the time it is lodged. And because our people are having the pressure of 95% from the time of lodge, once they hit the previous 95, the 5% that was left off there tends to be a last in the chain, and then because the other cycle of the other 95 has started. But if we're to then look at those matters, like Compensation Fund has done right, to say, you know what, we give you one blanket time, is 25 working days, anything and everything that shall have been received. Then it makes everything to be a focus. There's no risk of another one being number last in the queue because the other cycle of the other 95 has started. And then those 5, because even though it's 5%, you're talking big numbers of people. And then those big numbers of people are the ones that are not serviced because we are chasing the other 95. And then they busy parliament, they busy minister, they busy every other person. Once we have done, as we have done that diagnosis, we then set the systems to service everybody within whatever times that shall have been okay. We hope that there shall be a huge reduction of those items. We're also putting in the same systems, and CF is already advanced in that, where some of them are able to auto-assess and auto-approve, and therefore may need not only a human intervention. And then you find that you set your system such that they also enable you. So those processes are underway in the improvement of service delivery. But I think at a higher level, maybe the DG minister, deputy minister, but at an operational level, that's where we are. And we're having our eyes quite fixed on those items. It's a good identification, Honorable Nontsel, that the ICT tends to cut across as one of excuse. And it's so true. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. If I may, apologies, I'm in a bit of a noisy place here. So it is Farzana, Acting Commissioner for Compensation Fund. Just on Honorable Maiso's comments, thank you for identifying all of those issues and for the commendable, agreements that I've stated. It is under the guidance of the Minister and the Acting DG and the Deputy Minister. It has really brought about change for us. What I can say, the specific issues in Program 3, we did talk to it in slide 41. However, I know it's very technical issues. Program 3 is related to medical invoices. And as you know, if you ask any medical aid administrator out there, it's very complex. And because of those complex issues and the fraud that we tend to experience in this aspect, that is why you're seeing a 38% payment there. In terms of the administration also, we did point out in slide 41 that the 9% is actually due to the procurement and the finalization of ICT contracts. Therefore, we are looking at how to catch up with the procurement. And also, it was also in terms of the bad debt that we experienced and provisioning for that bad debt. But overall, we take your comments into play and we'll definitely look at improving the expenditure on Program 1. Honorable Nontsele, in terms of the compensation fund, the outstanding matters, I think I'm not going to take too much time on it. I think what happens is that the compensation fund, because of its complexity and the prescripts that are needed from COIDA when you want a claim, so everyone keeps on thinking that, no, there's a delay from my side, there's a delay from my side. But then if you get injured, for example, you need an employer's report, you need a first medical report, you need a progress medical report, and then you need a final medical report for us to then finally decide, yes, once we have the final medical report, yes, this is the percentage of injury, this is what we calculate as your benefit, etc. And I think that's where people then start getting frustrated on that delay there. but it's the prescripts and it's the processes. So I think we just need to do, and which we are doing, much more advocacy sessions out there so that we can explain to stakeholders what is the process, what are turnaround times in actual payment. But in the meantime, what I can assure you is that when someone does get injured, we do pay a TTD. So we pay your salary while you're off work, right? Or the employer pays it, must legally pay it, and then claim from us. So those are the issues that I just wanted to raise there. I think also on the CETA and the ICT matter, the DG has given us instruction to look at how we can have our own independent ICT infrastructure. And I do know that the ICT teams are exploring those solutions in terms of how we're going to go about having our own ICT infrastructure, because as you clearly and correctly point out, CETA does impact our service delivery. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Tim. Chair, if you may allow me just to perhaps underscore some points that my colleagues have already covered in certain areas, but I thought maybe I could also add one or two other issues. There are specific interventions and initiatives that we have collaboratively put in place, Chair, and I want to maybe just share one or two of these. One of those is in the area of the labor activation program, right? And this particular area is a very critical cog in our pursuit to drive and address unemployment in South Africa. And unfortunately, has been in the past hogging the headlines for the wrong reasons. But we've been really hard at work to repurpose that, but to also ensure that it is addressing the specific needs that are required by society. Some of the things that we've done in this space was to put proper controls to ensure that we can account for the money that is rolling out there. What we have done so far, we've introduced a probity process, which we reported to last time we were here, and that's yielding proper results, as it were. We're beginning to now enter into a space where we are ready to engage and contract. We've identified already about 23 service providers that have gone through the paces, and we can vouch for them that they'll be able to ensure that they deliver what is expected of them. So that is coming through, and that just alone on those 23 contractors or partners, we're probably going to be spending, just above 4 billion rand, and that should give us employments of about 300,000 people. So it's beginning to look better than before, but we will obviously come and report appropriately on the specific programs that are important to Parliament. The other area, of course, that we are focusing on specifically is the area of tax, because yet again, this is an area that is correctly designed to help organizations that are in distress to turn around. There's been some issues here where perhaps there hasn't been appropriate capacity that has been put together to address this particular area. We have shortage of capacity and resources, and we're beginning to address that particular issue. We've also increased the resources here in as far as allocation of budget is concerned. And we're beginning to see more numbers of companies that we are now approving to benefit from this. The other initiative that we've taken, Chair, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, we have augmented our resource capacity, particularly within the UIF. We have recognized that there's certain critical constraints that we have within the UIF, and as indicated, for instance, the area of lab, there's only 3 staff members that generally are responsible for this. And if you look at the amounts of money that they disperse and the skill set perhaps that they have, it required us to address that specific issue and problem. So we've augmented some of that, and we've onboarded additional personnel to try and address some of those resource constraints that we have seen, because these are indeed catalytic projects. The other initiative has been, taken to ensure that there is uniformity between the two funds in approach in as far as standardization around, common areas of claims and reporting. And we have now, created a structure that meets regularly that comprises excos of the two funds. And I think there is some nice benchmarking that we've seen. A lot of colleagues already that spoke ahead of me have referenced this. If you listen to the compensation, not the compensation, but rather the UIF commissioner, he's been making some references already to UIF because he's seen certain things that work better, there, and vice versa, as it were. So we are trying to ensure that there is operational consistency and effectiveness to ensure that there's appropriate and proper service delivery. The orientation generally in terms of the turnaround that we are effecting with these two funds is operational efficiency and effectiveness, because indeed the beneficiaries of our services deserve better. Whether they're getting services online or they choose to come in person, we have to treat them with decency and respect. We've also ensured that we are focusing the regions on actual issues that matter, which is operations. And there again, there's a team that meets together that I chair with all the CDPOs, the two commissioners, and two DDGs that form OPSCO, to look at nothing else and discuss nothing else, but to focus on operational matters so that we do not necessarily leave those to chance. Concluding, Chair, my colleagues have talked to the issue of ICT. It is indeed a challenge that we have, both in terms of our architecture and infrastructure, but also it is also a challenge in as far as some of the practices that we've seen from service providers, which tend to want to hold us at ransom. And we're addressing that, and we're addressing it quite decisively going forward. The new service provider for the online system has now fully been onboarded, and the commissioner has referenced that point. We are meeting with them regularly to ensure that these things are robustly put in place to ensure continuity, as it were. And lastly, Chair, I want to mention the fact that we believe that because of the nature of what we do, there will always be those individuals that prefer to see us in person. And we believe to an extent that they choose to come to our labor centers, we should treat them at the labor centers with the respect that they deserve. We have introduced Q ambassadors. Well, we are introducing Q ambassadors who are enabled with technology to ensure that there is better management of queues. We are also going out on tender in end of this month, beginning next month, to put in place a queue management, an automated queue management system. We are planning that it will be onboarded from the 1st of April next year. So I thought I'll just add those few points, Chair, just to embellish the points to say that it is, amongst others, the reasons that we're beginning to see some green shoots in certain areas, but we are hoping that in other areas where they're still lagging behind, that they will quickly catch up, because the die has been cast and there is no lack of appreciation of the agency at hand. Thank you very much, Chair. I think that's the bit that I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, my apologies. I think Mr. Yawa is guilty as charged for upward delegation. I think the acting DG has responded to the upward delegation of Mr. Yawa, who continuously said maybe the DG and the minister and the deputy ministers would add. Sorry to abuse you, because I suspect my DG is addressing the fact that he had some overview to make. Now he's coming up with concluding remarks that are totally out of what you had requested as responses. But I think if you forgive us, it's also out of the excitement that he is hands-on and he knows what is happening, which we appreciate. But I see members are living in numbers, Chair. I won't say anything, but we won't remove our foot from the pedestal, in particular, looking at the issues of the CF and the UIF as we are about to reconfigure and restructure them, but also saying that Productivity South Africa is also trailing at the back in terms of this performance that we want to see in this particular department. So we want to appreciate your support, Chair, and hand over back to you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and your team. I think you've responded adequately to the questions and been given even more to go and work on. But I think as we conclude on these two presentations, I think I want to start on a lighter note that when you are a non-performer and all of a sudden there's high performance shown, there's general excitement everywhere, but there's also shock on the other side that this is possible. So understand it that we are also living for that reason, that we get to know that this high performance, what is the cause? And both the CF and UIF have made reference to leadership interventions that have been made, both from the level of the ministry and at the level of the acting DG. And we can only say that what we need in that score is consistency of providing that leadership throughout, so that we do not go back, but instead get to higher levels of performance, and that matters raised by the Auditor General are also addressed. So we should be seeing also improvement in the next cycle of annual reports that we'll be handling. I think that's appreciated. Also an appreciation that from the responses to questions that members would have asked, we do get a sense that there's also that benchmarking that's happening within the portfolio, and that you are maximizing the availability of systems as shared, that this thing about the 30 days payment of invoices are now putting it in automation so that you have consistency. It may look like a very small issue, but quite important because, as already said, other SMMEs go under just because they've been waiting for a simple thing, payment for work done. Not because they're asking for any favor, but just payment for work done. So once it's systematized, automated, you can track. I'm happy every time I hear early warning signs that they will be there. And in fact, from the comparison that has been made, one was looking at Q2, that probably that's the time when we had system problems. And then you have high performance. It can only mean that the problems are not just the system all the time, but it is also how people push their level of work to satisfactory levels, or even going beyond the call of duty, not just about meeting the targets that are set for themselves. And I think that comparison that we're given was, for me, very important, so that we know that consistency of leadership I'm talking about should help even that staff to keep being motivated to do more. And in that way, we change the perception people have about service delivery at that level. So just keep up the good work. I think that's really what we want to say to you. and take note that we do appreciate because these two, we have flagged them as we came in from induction. That if there's anything that we would have to measure ourselves to have done, both at the level in terms of executive execution and us playing the oversight role, is to turn the UIF and the compensation fund around. And I think you are on the right track in that regard, and you have got our support. So once again, thanks, Honorable Minister and your team. As you know, we also do not want to hold you hostage when you are done, because we planned to finish at 6. You can leave with your team when the time left, because the minutes that we'll deal with are merely committee matters. But we really do appreciate that you made time for the committee to come before us. Thank you. As we
Chairperson, thank you so much.
Thank you. As we get the committee support to flight the minutes, I've just checked on the poll. We still have the members we require. Honorable members, will now move to the last item on the agenda. Mr. Sagasa?
Yes, Chair, I'm getting to the minutes now, Chair.
The minutes of the 23rd of October are the ones presented now.
I'm trying to get down to
Honorable Chair.
On the other side of the computer. Yes, Commissioner?
Would I be correct to say this is a domestic matter in committee for the committee and we can be excused? I just don't want to disappear.
That's why I officially released you, and that I don't want to hold yours.
Thank you very much, good Chair.
Yes. Mr. Sakasa, you're killing me with time.
Hello, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
I can hear you. See, I'm not sure.
But I'm trying to share the minutes now of the 23rd. Can you see them?
No, not yet. And our time now.
Okay, Chair. Let me see, Chair, which one are appearing. Are they appearing, Chair?
So there's the one on the 23rd. We can go through that. But I'm not sure what you are doing.
It's not going down to go down to. Yo, Chair, I don't know what's happening because it's I stop sharing and then the pin and we had kuyo.
Can ICT support then help us? Because we need to get done.
Okay. Let me just try with this, maybe with Ilando Chair Ilando the notice yabonakala yona. Then can I scroll down ke nguyo notice mhlawumbe ngiqale ngijonge yona Chair? Because nayo ingathi ndiyayibona or iyabona iyehla yona. Let me stop sharing it then ndiye kwi minutes Chair. Sorry for that Chair. Still ziyabonakala Chair.
Yeah, it's still in the same way.
But as
but it can
azikhle Chair azi down kule nto endiyenze.
can we get another person
Chair, I will ask you mhlawumbe sizifake for next weekend and izibona ukutheni zingahle.
No. Let's check. Can you send the minutes to one of committee support, either Mr. Ngobo or Mukwena?
Okay,
And
let
then
me ask Ulanto Poshia to share because she's also a
yes,
co.
the minutes are
co-host.
getting to a backlog now. And we need to have approved minutes for legal purposes.
Or the chair, the Lando Wokundi and phone.
Apologies, honorable members. We just have to really conclude our business.
Chair. Hello, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, can you?
No, Chair. Since i-minutes bendizithumele kula nto last time, no Porsche akazifumani ngokuze khandiphinde ndizithumele ngoku.
It's fine then if we can't.
All right. You're good.
We'll have to have them stay over, and this problem should be.
Okay, sorry for that.
Yeah. Okay. Honorable members, that's then take us to, that was the last item. I just wanted us to really complete the business of the meeting. But we can't do anything with the technical glitches we have. We'll have to keep the minutes for the next meeting. And we may probably start with that just to clear the minutes and start on a fresh slate. But thanks for making time for the meeting, and the meeting stays adjourned until we meet. Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.